It's that time again, everybody, which is relatively obvious because now we're occurring on a regular weekly basis. That time occurs all the more often. It's episode 70 of the Lookout Sir Warhammer 40,000 podcast. A Warhammer 40,000 podcast, as is indicated by it being called a Warhammer 40,000 podcast. Presented and or produced by myself, Dan, and my good buddy, Phil. How's it going, Phil?
Hello, hello. Hopefully, I'm still sounding quite good. We had a lot of feedback last week. People loving the new audio, due to a variety of
Are you close enough to the
equipment.
microphone, you feel, Phil?
I believe so. Hopefully. But, however, we're in the middle of a storm here, so there's a lot of rain. I'm in the shed, as always. So hopefully the audio isn't too bad during this episode, but it might be in a few places where it rained very heavily. So we'll see.
It's true. It's true. This is one of those rare instances where we record the content before we record the intro, so we have a degree of prescience about.
Exactly. We can pretend we have our third eye and we are all psychers.
That's it. The golden light of the Emperor is guiding us through the miasma that is time and space.
We partook of the spice, although that is a different sci-fi reference.
That's a totally different thing, although it has a lot of links, I understand. But yeah. Didn't you find it always weird when that weird creepy dude in the Dune movie had the weird plugs in him that he would pull out? That was really unnerving.
Yeah, that was amazing. I replicated that on one of my models that I did. I did a little.
Oh, really?
I did a Hobbit Town goblin, and I chopped his arms off and put chainswords on there, and then I replaced his head with a skull to make him like a servo assassin, and then I gave him a little heart plug because obviously you need that kind of safeguards when you've got a dual chainsword wielding weirdo in your basement.
You need that kill switch just in case.
Exactly. You've just got to get there though. That's the problem.
That's it. Why did you put it on the front? You should have had it on a chain attached to his arse or something. It would have really been better. That's
putting something else out entirely.
Yeah. Well.
Anyway, look, we're doing a classic thing where we're rambling on and not introducing what we're talking about.
Well, exactly. Well, I was hoping that you might I was working into a situation where I was going to talk about the prescience of what we know is coming next, and maybe now Phil can tell us what's coming next. So there you go. I worked it back in.
Oh, okay. All right. We are talking about Death Guard and Mortarion, because I made sure that we squeezed him in.
That's true.
We're
got
talking
Tim
about
on
that.
The show, didn't we?
We did. We got our good buddy Tim coming along because he's a Death Guard player. And then potentially we're going to talk about the Warhammer preview that came out as well.
We're going to do that in the outro ramble, right?
Yes, because you've insisted. But yes. And
there
there might be a few other bits in the ramble.
2.5 hours long, Phil.
I know. It's one of those times where we decided we were doing the Death Guard Codex because it's timely, it's come out. We finally got our hands on a copy. But also so much other stuff happened this week in terms of previews and pre-orders as well. So we'll see what we can squeeze in at the end.
Well, exactly. Well, we're about to go on and record that, but not before we have our 5-star review.
Hang on a second, what is this? Some kind of review? A 5-star review? Well, let's get into the nitty-gritty of this Warhammer 5-star review.
This week's 5-star review comes from the beautiful lands of Norway, where I can tell you the podcast actually performs very well. We do very well in the Norway. And this 5-star review comes from BATTLESISTER O. And BATTLESISTER O has stated, Sororitas much, ? 5 stars, despite their total neglect of the Adeptus Sororitas. Now, we have to dispute this straight away, right?
Lies.
Because we did do a review of the Adeptus Sororitas, right?
We did. We got Richard on.
Exactly. He collects Adeptus Sororitas. I collect Adeptus Sororitas, in so much as I've purchased Adeptus Sororitas miniatures and put them in a box.
I covet Adeptus Sororitas, but have no time to ever buy them or collect them.
You're hiding in their cupboard, are you, Phil? Watching them from afar.
I am trying to collect the cherubs and the little servo skulls, because they are fantastic little bits that I want to adorn my Space Marines.
They would be
so
very
if anyone
nice
wants to send some cherubs my way, they're more than welcome to.
Well, exactly. There you go. You're always plugging that. Come on, someone send him some cherries.
No. Well, I'll tell you what. So, this is completely going off topic, but it is on topic because it's the 5-star review. Pastor Iluk,
yes,
yeah. He actually is sending me some bits. I was chatting to him on Instagram because he is doing Adeptus Sororitas. He's doing loads of penitent engines and mortifactors.
Mortifiers,
mortifiers. The penitent engines with the guns. And basically, for ages, I've been saying I want to do a demon host conversion using the coffin that is from the penitent engine. And I noticed he's got tons. So I was like, "Do you have any of these bits just floating around?" And he says yes, and he's sending them to me all the way from Australia. What a kind, lovely chap he is. So thank you very much.
I'd like to find out what the potential import duty is on those when they come through, but.
Well, hopefully none. It's a gift.
Well, exactly. Hopefully he paid for that import duty before it arrived, right?
Maybe.
It'd be very inconsiderate of him to have made you pay for whatever taxes come into effect. Anyway, our good friend Battle Sister O has said, yes, Sororitas much, despite their total neglect of Adeptus Sororitas, which we hopefully have somewhat addressed just there, as a highly competitive faction. They are quite delightful to listen to. The only podcast that outlasts my painting sessions. Obviously, the Adeptus Sororitas are an extraordinarily competitive faction. I don't know if any of you out there have yet to experience the insanity that is the Repentia squad charging into you.
They're the ones with the sneakers and chainswords, right?
Yeah, mate, they are something insane. Like, they've got amazing amounts of attacks, huge amounts of damage. Like, they are just crazy. Combine that with a number of things that the army brings to the table. I genuinely really rate Adeptus Sororitas. What's interesting, I suppose, is that obviously as part of the 40k update weekend just passed, or the 40k community update thing, we just saw that they are getting new units. So I think it's reasonable to assert that with new units, a new Codex will not be far behind. So I'm really keen to see what happens to these guys as and when their new Dex comes, and whether or not some of this stuff will remain quite as competitive as it is currently. Because they've got some very strong stuff. Does that mean
the old Quizmaster himself will be coming back on the show?
Oh, he definitely will. When those come around, we'll definitely get Richie on. Richie has many opportunities to return, and we look forward to when he does. But Sororitas, great faction. Definitely don't talk about them enough. I need to actually double down and actually start building and painting my collections, because I think they're just fantastic. And I'm so excited by those new, like, little dreadnought things.
We're saving that for the end of the show.
Well, that's it. We'll talk about that in just a moment in our time. But, a while away in podcast time. But anyway, as is tradition, Phil, why don't you say thank you to Battle Sister O for their review.
I wonder if I should try and put on like a voice of Joe. And let me see.
No, don't.
Oh,
we need to stop referencing him all the time. We need to, because otherwise it makes us look like we're bitter that we can't move on.
Or we miss him or something. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, miss him.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for the nice 5-star review. Wholly accurate in terms of we don't really talk about sisters all that much, but we have when we can. They are pretty competitive. I'll put a little nugget in there. Currently, competitive 40k is very keen on Adeptus Sororitas and Astra Militarum. Smushing them together as a kind of combined army is one of the current top tips that people are talking about. Like I said, because sisters are really good. But yeah, thank you for the review.
Beautifully said. Equally, thank you very much for the review. It is always appreciated. And obviously, if you out there, the listener, would like to hear us say equally nice things about you, you know what to do. Go onto the interwebs. Find yourself on a location where you are able to give a 5-star review. Most notably, it seems to be that the Apple podcast reviews get pulled through more succinctly than others. But regardless of that, put yourself up on there, say some nice things, and you'll hear from us saying nice things about you, because obviously we love the support. And it's all good. Sorry, Phil.
I've got a bonus review. It's not really a 5-star review. It was just a really nice comment on Reddit, of all places.
Oh, go on then. Fine.
So this guy is Stupedima. He says, I like these guys. It's like being stuck with a bunch of nerds in in the seat behind you on the bus, talking about stuff you like. I thought that was like a quite wholesome, nice comment.
Although what you've done there, Phil, is you've broken the etiquette, because we're supposed to be celebrating Battlesister O for their contribution, and now
because he did
you're
it as a proper
in this new person.
Well, we can cut that out if it offends you.
No, we won't cut it out. I just want to apologise to Battlesister O for now.
You are the 5-star review. This is an unofficial, not even a 5-star review.
Exactly. Whoever this person was from Reddit. I mean, as much as it's nice to hear pleasant sentiments, that was not the time or place.
You're like, we don't care. We don't care unless it's a 5-star review.
Exactly. We're all about the money.
The reviews.
Yeah. Give me that gold. Anyway, cool guys. That's that. Let's move on now to talking about Death Guard. Transitional noise. Woo! Welcome back, everyone. In this part of the podcast, we are joined by the one and only Tim. How's it going, Tim?
Hello. It's going well. Thank you very much. How's it going with you guys?
I'm glad to hear that. I'm butchering all my words today, it would appear. I can't even get a sentence out properly just yet. How are you, though, Tim? Are you able to, string words together for us today?
Just about. I mean, on a good day, possibly. On a bad day, no, not at all. It's always 50-50.
And, on the topic of having a bad day, Phil's here as well. How's it going, Phil?
I'm good, but I'm having a good day, so I don't know what you're on about.
I know. I'm being funny, aren't I? Ooh, making fun. Tee-hee. Ha ha ha. So for those of you who haven't been listening to the show for an awfully long time, Tim is our, a regular, as it were. He turns up every now and again to contribute his opinions and views on things. A valued contributor to the Lookout Sir 40k podcast, if not necessarily as frequent a contributor as we would like. But what, good old Tim specialises in, his specialties, is the Death Guard, right, Tim?
Yeah, totally. It's like I never play Tyranids at all,
Well, that time you did Elder.
that one flash in the pan, I did do Elder. Yeah.
I mean, I literally just wrote him the army list.
Yeah, literally.
I'll just go buy it.
I'll just do that at GT. That's fine. No, yeah, I've decided to jump on the. I wouldn't say I'm jumping on the Death Guard bandwagon. At the end of our last GT, which was the Eldar list I took, I was kind of like, I want to play something that's not going to get kicked around like my Tyranids. And I want something that's just going to stick on the board a bit more, but is a bit forgiving for me, because I am still a beginner, in a way. Even though
you're not supposed to say that, Tim. You're supposed to give off the illusion that you're a pro, and that's why we've got you here. Giving
big knowledge.
I am like top 10 ICC Death Guard player right now. You can
possibly.
The amount of tournaments going on, I can make that claim.
For sure.
But yeah, so I thought, I will jump on the Death Guard and do them as an army, because we all knew about a new Codex coming along, and lo and behold, here it is now.
A wondrous time. A wondrous time indeed. So you were basically saying that you were doing Death Guard before it was cool?
Yeah, pretty much. I am a hipster Death Guard player.
There you go. You were rocking Death Shrouds when they were rubbish.
Yes, yeah.
You've got some really nicely painted Death Guard stuff though, right, Tim? Are you posting that on your Insta much? Are you showing it off?
No, I'm not. The reason being is because I don't have a good camera setup. So I know, I'm going to use that excuse. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get everything painted, and then I'm going to buy Phil some tea and go around his, with COVID depending, and be like, Phil, can you take some of those photos of my models, please?
Now I've got a nice camera, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
We can make that happen.
Isn't he generous, eh? Good old Phil.
I know. Why don't you, while you're on the topic of your Instagram, just give it a plug for the people at home?
So if people do want to have a look at it, it is fickle_brush. It's the only outlet of social media where I'll post any sort of 40k stuff, although I haven't for a while. But you will see my lovely nids on there, and some 30k World Eaters, but I won't talk about them.
There you go. We do always promote your Instagram, Tim, on every episode. It's in the description.
I know. I'm very grateful, and I feel
it's
bad
all right, mate. We're always
enough.
like the key contributors, or not even necessarily key contributors, but you, Richie, even Sean is in there.
And he's never
Sean's
been on the
never
podcast.
appeared.
Yeah.
Sean does post regularly, though, on his
He
social
does.
media.
I mean, to be fair, he's got some beautiful stuff.
He's a great painter, so he deserves
clean.
it.
So clean. He doesn't like it when you say it's so clean. He took real offence to it the other day when I said that.
Really?
He was like, he started sending me photos of some of his Adeptus Titanicus stuff with some weathering on it, going, "Look, Dan, this isn't clean." Oh, sorry,
Like,
I didn't realise
I've
it
learned
is.
how to do sponge weathering effects.
Are you taking the mickey now?
No, I'm taking the mickey in terms of his ultramarines are like box art, clean.
Oh, they're so
There's
good.
no weathering on them at all, but crisp edge highlighting
So
everywhere.
crisp.
It's
So
very
crisp.
nice.
He always draws a crowd at Warhammer World, doesn't he? Whenever you're playing him, and then the thing is I'm normally the one playing him, or well, at least when I am playing him, and people are coming over looking at his models, going, "Oh wow," and then they sort of peer over at mine and go, "Oh well."
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, that's mostly because your models are painted by Joe.
It is true, though.
Shivered there right away.
I know, right? I know. God,
It's fine. He doesn't listen to the podcast anymore. Or
No.
ever.
True. The word might get back to him though.
True. Let's see if
Well,
it
it will
happens.
get back
Let's
to him,
see.
but it's fine.
Exactly. What are you
Well,
going to tell him, Tim? Are
yeah,
you
yeah.
going to dob in Phil?
No, I'm not going to dob in Phil. I'm just going to say, have you seen his Helions lately?
Helions? What are those like flipping?
Isn't it
like,
Helions?
Helions, those
Helions?
little
Oh, I like the
Dark
idea
Elder
of
flying.
Helions.
Helions,
Racing.
because they just consume lots of helium, which
Yeah.
makes them fly.
Or ride around on Heelys.
Exactly.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Totally
Anyway,
how
look,
it
we're going to
works.
talk about Death Guard.
Yes.
One of the things we said about this podcast without Joe is we were going to be much more to the point, so we've already ruined it.
No, not at all.
You've washed away the goodwill that we built up over the last 3 weeks, Tim. You're a
I'm
bad
sorry,
influence.
everybody. I listened to the last podcast. You did really well to stay on track. And just like now, I'm derailing it. So
Exactly.
off,
When me and
get
Phil
off, get
were
out of there.
just the two of us, this is why the 3-person format's terrible, Phil.
We have too much fun.
Exactly, it's too much fun. We're not supposed to have fun. All right, crikey, let's
serious
talk about
business.
it. Serious business. Now, look, Death Guard, Tim, as the
Yes.
number
Top
one Death
5
Guard
CC.
player in the whole
Yep.
wide world right now.
Yep.
We may as well start by talking about the things that have changed, right? So the
Yep.
thing that most people have talked about is a little-known rule called disgusting resilience. Now, Tim, as our in-house Death Guard expert, please explain to me what disgusting resilience used to be and now what it is.
Okay. So discussing the resilience used to be, if you took a wound, you could roll a d6, and on a 5 up, you would negate that wound. What it's changed to now is that each time an attack is allocated to a model in that unit, subtract 1 from the damage characteristic of that attack to a minimum of 1. So you're no longer just getting a chance to ignore the wound completely. You are just negating the damage a bit more. This kind of took, I would say this did take the community by a bit of a shock, because people were still hoping to get their 5 up feel no pain, as we so commonly refer to it as. And so there was a bit of hoo-ha about it. Even I had a little bit of an instant gut reaction of like, oh, that's a bit annoying, because that was kind of cool about the Death Guard. Luckily, there's quite a few people that do quite a lot of mathematics out there. And it doesn't actually seem as bad as it sounds. I've still yet to play test it, but yeah.
I mean, understandably, there's always quite a lot of anger. Well, not necessarily anger. I hate to attribute anger to the situation, but there's a lot of, reaction that goes on with these changes that GW are bringing about, and ultimately, when it comes to something as iconic to the Death Guard as this disgusting resilience role, or rule rather, not having that after having enjoyed it for like the last 3 years is a big change. But to the best of my knowledge, disgusting resilience or feel no pain is, relatively new to Death Guard. Or did Death Guard always have a feel no pain in the older editions?
They had it since 7. When did the new range Death Guard come out? 7th, wasn't it?
That was 8th edition. So
It
all
was
the
8th
new Death
edition.
Guard stuff. Because before, I think they were just toughness 5. Although, oh no, that was it. Death Guard were toughness 5. Plague Marines, which were the specific Death Guard specialist, were feel no pain. That was the situation. So they were toughness 5 with feel no pain, whereas the Mark of Nurgle made you toughness 5. So yeah, anyway, look, I mean, personally, I think it's the right change because I think it presents a really interesting challenge. And obviously, there are units that are immediately benefiting from this, but we'll get to that when we talk about units. But, spoilers, I think you're going to see a lot of Terminators all of a sudden because those guys are really benefiting from this rule.
Oh, no.
But I'm not surprised that they went that direction because, one, the 5-up Disgusting Resilience roll slowed down the game. There was a lot of extra rolling. And also, whether it was actually true or not, the amount of Disgusting Resilience 5+ rolls that I saw against me when playing against Death Guard were astronomical. Whether it was true or not, Disgusting Resilience rolls always felt like disproportionately good for what they should be. Like, I've seen Phil try to roll 5-up armor saves for forever. He can't roll 5-up armor saves. Give him a 5-up Disgusting Resilience, he'll pass it every time. It's just the way it goes. I mean, Phil, how did you feel about the old Disgusting Resilience?
Yeah, it's one of those, like, it's an anti-fun mechanic for the other person. It doesn't sort of feel good if the other person can just roll hot. And that's always the way to an extent, but this was always like, oh cool, I've done 5 wounds to you, you've only got 2 left, so I only need to do 2 wounds, and you're like, oh, I've just passed all of these 5-up saves, so I'm good. And you're like, that shouldn't have happened. And when that happens, it's just quite frustrating. So for the other player, it's quite annoying. Whereas now it's -1 damage. You can mitigate that, or you can deal with it. You know, when you're shooting at something, you know what you're going to get. You've got the desired outcome, or what the outcome will be. So you can plan for it, which I think is a better way for the game.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you're getting shot by a gun that's designed in the lore to be able to take, chunks off a Titan, and you can't kill one Plague Marine, it's like, right, yeah, no, that's a bit stupid.
I agree. Having games with both of you on like Tabletop Simulator and actually seeing it firsthand, even I felt bad with the amount of 5s I was getting. And I know that's Tabletop Simulator, so let's take that with a pinch of salt. But still, when you're rolling hot, as Phil just mentioned, it's kind of like, this shouldn't be happening, kind of thing.
So the changes to Disgusting Resilience are easily the biggest changes in this book. But it's not the only change that's come the way of the Death Guard. One of the more significant changes is they have lost Death to the False Emperor, which is a well-established and long-running rule within Chaos Space Marines, and potentially a sign of, things to come for future Chaos Space Marine books. Sorry, excuse me. A little bit of a hiccup there. Signs of things to come for future Chaos Space Marine books. And something that is quite interesting. However, it feels like, certainly when it comes to Death to the False Emperor, they've compensated with this with other abilities, which we'll touch on later. But the other thing they've also lost out on is the Hateful Assault special rule, which is the Space Marine rule of you gain 1 additional attack when you charge, are charged, or heroically intervene. So now they're in a situation where they aren't gaining additional attacks against Imperial units on a 6 to hit, and they're not also gaining an additional attack when they charge, are charged, or heroically intervene.
That's interesting.
So how do we feel about that? Because overall, I mean, again, without getting into the specifics of the data sheets, it feels like a lot of the Death Guard have actually increased quite significantly in terms of attacks. The Demon Prince, for example, has gone up from 4 attack space to 6 attacks, which would obviously take into account the Shock Assault or Hateful Assault special rule that they used to have. I mean, are we feeling like that's a massive loss, or do you feel like the gains that we're about to touch upon kind of outweigh those negatives?
I feel like it's a gain that outweighs the negative, but also it helps with speeding up the game as well. So, and also, like, when you're playing a game, the amount of times I actually forgot Death to the False Emperor after you've done a whole bunch of rolls, and you're like, oh no, Death to the False Emperor, okay, never mind. So it's kind of nice in that retrospect that you've already just got your attacks there, and it's like, right, okay, I've got my Death Shroud, they do 4 attacks now, done, cool. I don't have to add more, I don't have to take away, like, it's just there. So, I've got 5 of them, 20, cool, well, 21, including the champion. It just makes it so much easier. So for me personally, I feel like it's a gain overall. I think it balances out quite nicely.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a move in the right direction. Like, as you say, I was going to say it as well, like, Death to the False Emperor, everyone always forgot because it's such a situational thing. And I think rules that are specific against a different faction, while fun and fluffy, are actually quite detrimental to an army, especially if you're looking at it from a match play all-comers tournament list, because you're effectively paying a points cost for, like, that's baked into the profile that only works against one other army, and most of the time you're not playing that army, so it's like, cool, I'm paying an extra point here or there for this ability that 90% of the time I'm not ever using. And while it is cool and thematic, it's like just having the extra attack in the profile makes so much more sense. Like, say, speeds up the game, you're not like re-rolling 6s, you're not forgetting because it's on the profile. It's just ultimately a better move.
That being said, though, more often than not, you will be fighting against an Imperium army at the moment. So it did happen more often than it didn't, I'd say.
Yeah, well, I mean, other armies as well, that have abilities that work against chaos, for example, or against orcs or something. Like, maybe as a general trend, those things are going to disappear, and maybe...
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's things like, there's all sorts of weird instances where it's like, this person hates orcs, and you never remember that. It never, ever comes up. So there you go. So they've lost those 2 abilities, but they have got Plague Weapons, which is one of their universal abilities, which is essentially each time you attack is made with a weapon, re-roll a wound roll of 1, so that's for all Plague Weapons, you're re-rolling ones to wound. You're Remorseless, so like the Fabulous Krieg, each time a combat attrition test is taken for this unit, ignore any or all modifiers.
Woohoo!
I'm one of you, Phil, now.
Yeah,
there you go.
You're as good as me, but you get all this extra cool stuff as well. Well done.
Yeah,
you're so hard done by Phil. And then you get Malicious Volleys, which is essentially the bolter rules for Space Marines. So if you remain stationary with an infantry unit, you can fire your bolt guns or bolt profile weapons twice at maximum range, and Terminators always count as being stationary for the purposes of this rule. That's pretty standard. And then probably the most interesting of the new abilities that they've gained access to is the Contagions of Nurgle. But before we get into the Contagions of Nurgle, does anyone actually feel like they want to talk about Plague Weapons, Remorseless, or Malicious Volleys in any way, shape, or form?
I think everyone knows what they are, pretty much, because they're just the Space Marine equivalents. Obviously, Plague Weapons is a bit unique, but it's been around an edition at least, so people know what they are. It's like not everything that Death Guard has is a Plague Weapon. Some things don't have it. It's mostly things like, your Plague Knife and things like that. But
things with Plague in the title.
Yes, but I do believe some abilities you can make things a Plague Weapon as well, which is quite a useful strategy and tactic. So that's something to also bear in mind.
It's quite pricey, though, I think, that stratagem, potentially. But
one CP, but I'll go over that.
We'll go over that in a bit. But the Contagions of Nurgle. Now, this is probably one of the most interesting changes. Come on, Tim. Tell us about the Contagions.
Yay! Okay, so this is probably like the most funnest thing. So, Contagions of Nurgle. Nurgle's Gift. While an enemy unit is within contagion range of this unit, subtract 1 from the toughness characteristic of models in that enemy unit. So, and it depends on the battle round. So from battle round 1, it's 1 inch. From 2, 3 inches. From 3, 6 inches. And from battle round 4, 9 inches. So pretty much all Nurgle units have this off the bat. Some Nurgle units, Mortarion, for example, just start off from 4, I believe. So
is that one of his warlord traits, or is that just a native ability?
That
I thought it was baked into his
It's probably baked into it.
Yeah.
I was just trying to remember whether it was a warlord trait or not.
I don't think it was. Yeah, I think it was baked in. But yeah, so that is a massive game changer. Just because the problem with Death Guard, so the good thing about Death Guard is they are resilient, and that's the whole point of them. The bad thing about Death Guard is that they are slow and they take a time to move around the board. So it brings in other units that you might not have necessarily seen in the past. So your rhinos or your bloat drones, because obviously they're doing well now with their increase in attacks and the flesh mower, and their movement range is like 12, I believe, 14. Obviously, Rhino's 12. So now you've got things that can rush up the board really quickly, and you are already, let's say, from Battle Round 2, Battle Round 2, you're already like an annoying presence on the board. And it's making people think twice before like trying to charge you with something quite hefty.
Yep.
I mean, I love it from a flavour perspective. I think like giving Nurgle something that depicts their, their impact on the world. You hear about or read about the influence that Nurgle has when maybe a warp rift opens and it's Nurgle demons spilling out and all the surrounding areas are just putrefied by their presence, and obviously all of the ground starts to rot and everything decays around them. So having an actual rule that starts to illustrate that impact is really interesting. It's something that I think is really, thematic, but just, really cool. Yeah. And it's not hugely punishing, although there are other auras, right, that are classified as contagions that also benefit from this situation, because it's not just that one. There's some other specific things that do other effects, right, Tim?
Yeah, there's other units, elite units that come with their own contagions and auras that sort of add to it as well. It should be noted that, though, say if you've got 2 units that are affecting one unit with a contagion ability, it does not stack. It's not like you're suddenly you're losing like -2. It's just always -1. So
yeah. But again, I mean, when you're doing this to say, I don't know, Sisters of Battle, Tau, Elder, Guard, any of those T3 units, you get some stuff within range, and all of a sudden they're T2, and your bolters are wounding them on 2s. It's terrifying, right?
It's massively terrifying. I was actually thinking of the opposite end, because it's like your dreadnoughts or even possibly your titans. Like you run a bunch of Death Shroud into them. Love them. Suddenly you've just made it more viable to actually do some damage to it. And it's not something you would have done before, maybe necessarily, because it's a Titan. Like, why would you charge a bunch of Terminators into it unless they've got chain fists and power fists and stuff? So yeah.
I think it's interesting that they decided to make it everything is -1 toughness rather than just infantry or infantry cavalry or infantry cavalry bikes. The fact that this impacts vehicles is pretty heavy.
That's still pretty thematic, though, in terms of the contagion and the plague sort of corrodes metal. It's not just something affecting flesh. It also just makes it incredibly scary to be on the opposite end of that, because Death Guard are going to end up in the mid-board where you also need to be, and it's like you've then got the trade-off of, do I want to get in close to get on objectives but then suffer this effect, or do I just want to try and avoid it completely and hang back? But ultimately you probably can't do that.
And it's obvious why people are saying and why people are observing that these are a very strong army for the current state of competitive play, because they just perfectly fit that archetype of incredibly durable close combat units. And again, another reason why, revisiting what we were saying last week about terrain, why I feel like we probably need to further address that, because with armies like this, if you add in the fact that you can't even draw a line of sight to them and you have to get stuck in and start engaging with them, you're just in a real bad spot with these guys. They clearly work very well in an ITC style environment, which I think is more cause for concern for the general state of play, because I think we need to look at that. But regardless of that, I think, it's such an interesting rule, and there's some really interesting stuff that goes on with that, and it's quite cool. Needless to say as well, probably the biggest change to the Death Guard is the changes that are now well established within 9th edition for Marines in the general sense. and that's the wound increases. Again, we can go through this when we look at specific data sheets, but like regular Space Marines, these guys now are 2 wounds basic, and their Terminator armor sees them increase to 3 wounds. And then when you factor in a bunch of other stuff, you're dealing with a very, very, very durable army now, right? I mean, Phil, are you looking forward to trying to chew through this?
It's going to be hard work. And it's like, so the meta in general, because of Space Marines and everything being 2 wounds, is to take more 2 wound damage dealing weapons. So, heavy bolters do 2 damage. But now a heavy bolter, one shot hitting Death Guard Marine can't actually kill it, because that 2 damage becomes now 1, and that only does 1 wound on a now 2 wound Marine. So now you've got to effectively do 4 damage with a heavy bolter to kill the Plague Marine. So it makes them incredibly tough. So in a way, it sort of means you've got to, if you do want to deal with them, you've got to actually stick with the 1 damage weapons and go for sort of high volume of shots instead, because what you would normally take to deal with a Marine list just doesn't work against a Death Guard list.
And you've always got to be conscious of the fact that they're always going to be waiting around the corner for you in a tournament setting. I mean, that was true of Death Guard in 8th edition, was that certainly when the Blight Haulers were, in high, high caliber unit, you always had to be prepared for trying to chew through the incredibly durable armies. And to be fair, I mean, against the old Blight Haulers back in the day, I don't think there really was much that could do anything about anything against those guys. But, at least with these guys, you could start to theory that maybe assault cannons are a good option. For regular Chaos Space Marines, you've got the what was that chain gun called that was all the rage when they released the Havoc box set? Like the big kind of like assault cannon, but it was like a Gatling cannon.
Isn't it just the Havoc cannon?
It's called like a Reaper Gatling cannon or something.
Oh, right.
It's the Reaper auto cannon. But then, anyway, point is there's a big like machine gun that you can use in those squads. But I mean, obviously, Tim, you've clearly will have seen the improvement, right? With like 3 wound Blight Lord Terminators and 3 wound Death Shroud Terminators. I mean, that's pretty mad, right?
Oh, it's great. It feels right though for Plague Marines and like the Terminators, because when we had games and I was going up against the Space Marines, and it was like, oh yeah, I'm just 1 wound, and yet you're 2 wounds in your, like, obviously they're Primaris, but still it was a bit like, I felt undone, like hard done by. So having 2 wounds just feels right, and it does make them again more resilient, which is what they're supposed to be about. It's just going to change up, as you guys have just mentioned, like what you are going to take in your army to deal with it. Does everybody go back to fielding as many heavy bolters or as many assault cannons as possible and just doing mass firepower and just chipping it down again, pepper potting? So yeah,
I mean, if there is a positive here, right, is that taking 10 Blight Lord Terminators, not without talking about war gear loadouts, they're 40 points base, right? So if you take 10 of these guys, you're looking between 420 and 450 points for that squad, or whatever it is, right? With certain weapon upgrades. So they're not cheap, right? No. I mean, that at least sort of helps mitigate some of the issues with the tar pit nature of them. Like, sure, you could probably get 30 Blight Lord Terminators on the field, but you ain't getting much else, right?
No, you wouldn't be left with you wouldn't have a lot left over to play around with. And the other thing is, you don't want to starve yourself of CP. Like, sure, you can bring in a Tallyman, and yes, you get a CP every turn, but my playstyle, so this probably goes against other people's, obviously will go against everybody else's ideas. My playstyle is I like to play a very well-balanced army, and I also like to have the CP there to use. I don't want to just take a spearhead detachment. Is it spearhead or vanguard? I always get the two mixed up. Anyway, the elite detachment.
It's Vanguard if it's the elite detachment.
Yeah. I just don't want to take like Vanguard detachment after Vanguard detachment of just like Terminator and stuff. It's not for me. And plus, you lose out on objective secured, although certain Terminators got it today. Anyway.
Well, speaking
I love the fact that now you're complaining about what other Terminator army's got.
Although,
the
right,
toughness 5, 3 wounds.
But the good thing is, like, the 3 wounds, yes, it's amazing. I agree with that, and the reason is amazing because they still have their 4-up in fun, which other people
madness.
lost, which is amazing. So yeah, it's like that's why it feels so good.
Can we, before we get into some of the specifics?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I said that a few times there.
There you go.
Can we just address the what are they called now? Plague Surgeon.
Oh yeah, the Plague Surgeon.
So the question is, Plague Surgeon, yay or nay? Would you are you looking at Plague Surgeons in your list?
I am. I'm looking at 3 of them in my list. I'm
3.
Yep.
Well,
75 points.
they're pretty good.
Is that a balanced list? Is it?
Yeah, totally, totally.
Yeah.
I will tell you my list at the end of this, and everybody can know what my thoughts are and rip it apart or whatever. Anyway, I've gone through so many different lists, and the one thing that keeps on cropping up in my list are Plague Marines. I think they are the bread and butter of the army, and I am more than happy. Well, if I could, I would try and take them in max squads, and because I'm doing that, I want them to stick around for as long as possible. So I am going to stick a Plague Surgeon with them. It gives them a 6-up feel no pain, or disgustingly resilient, and you get to bring a guy back as well. So it's a no-brainer in my mind, and it's already.
They have the ability to bring people back.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I for some reason I thought they didn't have that.
Yeah. I will.
I'm probably wrong, Tim, because I haven't read this nearly as much as you have up to this point. I skimmed it the other night, going, "Oh wow, I got to do this podcast tomorrow. Better become knowledgeable."
Oh no, I've been putting lists together, left, right, and centre. So, going back to the aura abilities, while a friendly bubonic, that's the thing. So
it's all right, Tim. No one's listening to this. You can just figure it out while you're going along. Don't worry.
No, sorry. At the end of your movement phase, this model can heal 1 friendly bubonic Astartes infantry model whose unit is within 3 inches of it. That model regains up to D3 lost wounds. Each model can only be healed once per turn.
Mm-hmm.
So, 3 units of Plague Marines. 3.
So you can heal the wounds, but can you bring them back?
Yeah.
Is that a stratagem? Is it?
Because that was just saying you can heal D3
Oh,
wounds,
you can
right?
heal it. Yeah, sorry, you can't bring it back. Oh, that's
There you
You're
go.
almost likely to have a guy on 1 wound left because of the -1 damage. While we're talking about the kind of bubonic Astartes, I was going to just point out there's some kind of cool thematic ways that your sort of data sheets are kind of, I don't know, like your detachments are themed in a certain way in terms of your builds. So, for example, it says you can't include more plague followers than bubonic Astartes. So plague followers are your cultists, and then it says a similar thing where you can't include more poxwalkers than your bubonic Astartes. So it means you can't spam cultists or spam poxwalkers because you need at least 1 squad of your sort of Death Guard infantry for each squad
if you did a
of
battalion
poxwalkers or
detachment,
cultists.
If you did a battalion detachment, you could still have, I don't know, 3 units of Blight Lord Terminator, 3 10-man units of Blight Lord Terminators and 3 Poxwalker squads.
Yeah, so Blight Lord Terminators count as the bubonic Astartes core, as does the regular Plague Marines, I believe. And you could maybe, because it's core infantry, I assume it won't include characters. Because one thing I noticed when they announced the kind of start collecting box set for Death Guard is unless you can take all of those Poxwalkers as 1 squad, it's like an illegal list based on these rules, because you can have 2 Poxwalker squads because there's only 1 infantry squad and 1 or 2 characters, which I believe wouldn't be the core infantry keyword, but I've not looked at the data sheets to see.
You can have up to 20 Poxwalkers.
Yeah, I think there's 30 in the box though.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. The other rule is infernal jealousy. So if I'm not mistaken, you can include basically one Lord of Death Guard, which I believe is Mortarian. Or was it something else?
Typhus is one of those.
So Lord of the Death Guard keyword. So you can only have one of them per detachment, and you can also only have one Demon Prince for each Death Guard detachment you have as well.
Yeah.
Well, they're also, they have the same keyword though, so you can't have a Demon Prince and a Lord of Contagion in the same detachment.
Okay. So it's almost like a double stipulation.
Yeah. So essentially, you end up now in a situation where you have to take a Lord of Contagion and a Sorcerer, because the HQ choices in this book are incredibly limited to Death Guard Sorcerer in Terminator armor, Malignant Plague Caster, and Lord of Contagion, and then you've got all the different flavors of Chaos Lord, which includes Typhus. So and then the Demon Prince, which is the same. So you got like 3 different flavors, 5 different flavors of a Chaos Lord, and then you've got 2 different versions of Sorcerer. Bizarre though that they got rid of a Sorcerer in power armor. It's weird, isn't it?
That is weird.
You can only take a Sorcerer if they come in Terminator armor.
Yeah.
Is there a model for one in power armor?
Well, technically, they did Death Guard power armored Sorcerer in the Heroes box, although that's a Plague Caster, right, Tim?
Technically, yeah, it is a Plague Caster, but there's nothing stopping you from saying it's just a Chaos Sorcerer.
And obviously they do Chaos Space Marine Sorcerers in power armor. That's a model that exists. It's just not very Death Guard looking.
Yeah, it's not very nurgly looking.
So maybe they've gone, because there's not an official model for it, we'd take it out, and at some point it might come back when they make their own. The other one is Feated Virion, which is you can include up to 3 Feated Virion units in a detachment, and they only take up 1 elite role slot. I don't actually know what units fall under that. It implies that it's kind of advisors and sort of smaller character units.
Yeah, so that's your Plague Surgeons, your Tallymans, your... what's the other guys called?
Oh, your Putrefier.
Your Putrefier, and then...
your...
What about the Sarti Barfast, but the guy with the bagpipes?
Oh no, that's a Nurgle creature, isn't it? That's a...
That's
a demon of Nurgle.
Because this isn't a Demonkin crossover book. It is.
No. This is pure Death Guard, mate.
Pure Death Guard, mate. So
they didn't take it, because I think the old Death Guard book used to actually have.
I thought it was in there.
Didn't it? I used to have Plague Bearers as a troop choice. They're gone now, aren't they?
So do you not have the Greater Demon of Nurgle in here as well as a unit choice?
Nope. No, he's gone.
I'm sure that was in there in the last one.
It could have been, but it's not anymore.
Maybe.
Interesting.
The only closest thing you get to a demon is the Demon Prince.
Which is a terrible model.
Yeah.
Well, there's some strong words. Terrible model.
The Demon Prince model is so old, surely.
No, mate, it's not that old, is it?
It's like 10 plus 20. I don't know, it's
10,
awful.
But like, even then, it's not that bad. I admit there are certain variants of the Demon Prince that don't hold up quite as well as others, but I think it's okay. The good thing about the Demon Prince is there's so many other like models from like Age of Sigmar or whatever that you can take.
You can do some cool. I've seen some cool conversions, but the base model in pretty much any iteration is pretty ugly, because it's never really themed to one Chaos God either. It's sort of very They did have a Demon Prince that was a Death Guard Demon Prince. That does exist.
Yeah, wasn't rubbish.
Did he not do a
it depends. He's got one big eye. He's got his big old eye. But other than his pirate, people can't see what we're doing there.
I mean, Death Guard had some really cool Forge World models back in the day.
Did they? I didn't even know they had a Forge World range other than the Heresy stuff.
No, well, it was all from Siege of Rax that it came out of.
God.
So, talking about the Krieg. They had some really good models cool stuff.
Well, anyway, the point is that they don't have demons in there. By the way, I didn't get around to giving my opinion on plague surgeons. We've just gone off on a tangent there, but I was going to say, controversially, I don't think they're worth it.
Why not, Dan?
Well, so here's my thinking, right? 75 points, right, is an awful lot for 6-up shrugs. Now, don't get me wrong, you can and you will often do okay with it, and that on top of everything else is a net positive. My thinking is that you're never going to have enough of them that they can be everywhere, unless, of course, you take 3 of them. But I do feel like you're at the point of diminishing returns, because you're getting to a point where you're like, okay, cool, I've now spent 225 points on 3 dudes that do nothing other than help my stuff stay alive. And I think the problem is with that is that often you'd be better off just buying more models for those squads. It's like, if you're going to take a 5-man unit of Plague Marines or, Blight Lord Terminators, just put 2 more Terminators in the squad, and that's the equivalent of, not quite the equivalent, but it's more or less the equivalent of 1 Surgeon. And then it's like, well, I'd rather have the 2 extra Terminators than 1 Surgeon, because 2 extra Terminators are way more survivable than 5 Terminators. 7 Terminators is way more survivable than 5 Terminators with a Surgeon.
I disagree.
Would be my interpretation.
Because I think Terminators are going to be hard-pressed to kill, especially with small arms fire. Unless you're shooting them with las cannons, in which case you're probably right. You're not going to get your points, because you're just outright kill for models. If you're able to just chip away a couple of wounds, in a turn you might kill 1 or 2, but then one's on half wounds, and then next turn he's back up to full strength again. You'll probably get those 2 bonus models back again just through keeping those models alive. It depends on how efficient you could be. So if you could have 1 Plague Surgeon but have him buffing 3 or 4 units, which is doable, because you can use equipment to increase their aura ranges and all that stuff. So then you'll get your money's worth out of him, I think. But 6-up on its own is not much. But on people that are already -1 damage, that could be, and they're multi-wound, that's pretty good. I think they're good. I think there's an argument for 1. I would just struggle with the idea of doing 3. I don't think you'll see the return on that investment.
I might change it up now.
Well, think about it. Again, play test it, figure it out. Ultimately, it's your list, mate. You do what you think is best. Phil, would you, purely speculatively, but would you take 3 of them? No. So the equivalent for me, it used to be a Quartermaster Cadre. So they did the exact same thing. It was a 6-up, feel no pain, for infantry units. And it's like, he was the equivalent of 1 or 2, the equivalent of at least 1 squad of infantry, which is 10 models. Ooh. It's like, he's just cheaper to just take the 10 extra models as an infantry squad, because he's not saving 10 men over the course of a game, or at least not the way I roll 6-ups. So for me it's not really worth it, I don't think. But for Plague Marines, where they're much more high value, they're sort of worth it, I would say 1 is probably a bit of a no-brainer. But any more would be pushing it the limit, I think.
I'm definitely gonna play test it, because nothing's set in stone. Like, this is a fresh book and everything. A Plague Surgeon equates to 3 Plague Marines, really, which is 6 wounds. So it does make me stop and pause. And there are other elite models I would like to take as well. Maybe having 3 was a bit overzealous. This is the thing, right? If you're getting shot by damage-free weapons, of which I can't think of too many, the only real one I can pull out of my mind right now is the Shadow Spectres have a damage-free, high AP, high strength gun.
range is pretty decent as well on Shadow Spectres. They're pretty good all round. I mean, Phil, is there much in the world of Guard that's damage free? I can't think of much.
This is a topic I was going to bring up. So apparently the Defiler battle cannon is now a flat 3 damage. Which
has that actually changed for you because it's been updated in this book?
No, but what it might mean is in the future, if that is a generic thing that's happening to all battle cannons, then it might affect the Guard battle cannon because it's the exact same weapon. In which case, then there would be an awful lot more damage-free weapons flying around. I think that would be overall a good change. I mean, I guess this might be a good time to talk about how it's weird that Death Guard is a subsidiary of Chaos, so there's lots of cool updates that are tantalised and teased in here because there are sort of generic Chaos weapons and Chaos data sheets, but because this has come out before the main Chaos Codex, Chaos players, generic Chaos players, don't get access to this stuff yet. But within this book there is a lot of tidbits of things that will be coming for them down the line, which is it's interesting. They've sort of done it in an odd order. They've not done the generic kind of faction first and then this as a spin-off second, in the way that they released Space Marines first and then all the supplements second.
Well, they've approached it in a different way, right? Because I mean, Chaos Space Marines, unlike Space Marines, because the great majority of the Space Marine range is different flavours of the same thing. It's like broadly the same, but here's a couple extra bits and a specific rule. Whereas what they've obviously established with Chaos as of 6th and then 7th edition, and then obviously 8th and onwards, is that each thing is its own thing in its own right. And as a result, it's different flavours of the same army, because ultimately Chaos is a bunch of, separate war bands as opposed to one cohesive structure that then has...
I mean, you could have made the argument that Blood Angels and Space Wolves and Dark Angels were all unique enough to just be its own codex, but ultimately, for the good of the game, I think the distinction between the two is really nice. That Space Marines are sort of one army and has sort of smaller sub-factions, where, as you say, Chaos are completely unique. And there isn't a cohesive sort of, core Chaos book, and everything is a supplement of that. It makes them much more interesting, and I like that it also makes Space Marines and Chaos Space Marines, they're just not, they're not like the evil versions of Space Marines. It's like they're completely different in terms of like their play style, their units, the equipment that they have, the fact that they don't have similar rules, as we were saying earlier, that they don't have the +1 to attack on charges or when they heroically intervene, for example. I think those subtle distinctions make them much more interesting.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think what could also be really interesting going forwards is what this potentially could mean for the Chaos Space Marine releases, right? Because I would love to see them maybe come out with, here's a new Emperor's Children book, here's a new World Eaters book, and then once we've established the 4 key pillars, as it were, so Thousand Sons, Emperor's Children, World Eaters, and obviously this that exists, then they hit us with the generic Black Legion Chaos Space Marine book that can then pull upon all these rules and bring them together in a more cohesive way. Because I think as much as it will be painful for the Chaos Space Marine players in the immediate sense that they're missing out on their army being as awesome as they want it to be, the net positive could be that in 2 years' time, if a good series of Chaos releases occur, you can have one of the most interesting and flavourful versions of the army where they've established really interesting rules for each of the different types of Marines, the Rubik Marines, the Plague Marines, the Berserkers, the Noise Marines, and then you can pull all of that into to all sorts of different war bands and factions and make everything super interesting, which would be cool to see. I mean, Tim, as an aspiring Chaos player, how do you want them to play it? Do you want it all now, or how would you approach releasing Chaos over the course of 9th edition?
Over the course of 9th edition, I've always wanted them to do. They've done Death Guard obviously, but I've always wanted them to do it separately. So, like you've just said, you have your Tzeentch, you have your Slaanesh, and you have your Khorne, and then you have the Black Legion. But also within that, you could have had like your Renegade factions as well, which would have played into their whole new Crusade system that they've got going. and you can just pull what you want from all the different Chaos gods. But I feel like the Chaos armies are distinct enough to be their own thing. They just haven't got enough. They haven't had the revamp that the Death Guard got, and that is what they need, really.
Or the Thousand Suns, for that matter. The Thousand Suns got a lot of love a few editions ago.
Well, they got their Rubik Marines, their Zangors, and obviously
their Terminators, their Sorcerers, their Primarch.
Yep, and then Primarch.
Yeah, they got a pretty full release in 7th edition, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, go on, Phil.
Oh, I was going to say, I've been saying for ages that Emperor's Children should be the next one. It sort of feels like it's deserved. The fact that AOS has had a massive sort of Slanesh release might tease that for this coming year if they do it. I don't think we have, as you're saying, World Eaters. I don't think they do both of them.
No.
If we get one Chaos release that's like a new faction, we get one for the whole edition, I think. It'd be a bit too much to ask for both. So I imagine we probably won't get anything until the generic Chaos book, and then maybe later in the year they might tease us with a new faction.
I feel like it's just going to be a card they're going to hold on to for a very long time to keep everybody engaged and buying. Like the sort of teasing of, is it going to be a Demon Fulgrim? Or is it going to be a Demon Angron?
Yeah, I mean, they've been teasing Fulgrim in the lore for quite a while now. I think since the Gathering Storm, they've had little tidbits of him being around. So I think they're doing that slowly building up to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got to get around to it, right? I feel like. For me, at this moment in time, I'd say let's do the Angron route first. I think World Eaters are bizarrely. I feel like World Eaters are in a worse place than Emperor's Children, not because of the fact that obviously Emperor's Children have nothing, but almost having nothing is better than having a bad something. It's like because it's sort of tempting to flirt with the idea of doing World Eaters until you realise that those Berserker models are just horrible. And then you start looking at the Age of Sigmar ranges and going, how do I incorporate that into this? And it just becomes a mess.
Yeah.
Anyway, look, I mean, there you go. There's some insight on that side of things. Let's get into some specific rules, shall we?
Yes. Let's talk about the secondary rules.
The secondary rules or the secondaries?
The secondary rules, not secondary.
The secondary rules. I didn't realise they had a subset.
Or the secretary rules.
The secretary rules. Ooh, very exciting. Phil, are you familiar with the secretary rules?
I am intimately aware of it.
There we are. The perks of running your own business, Phil.
So you get three to choose from.
Free to choose from, like every other thing. They're only free, actually. I think some of the Space Marine variants ended up with 4, but anyway. Free to choose from. 1 from No Mercy, No Respite. 1 from Battlefield Supremacy. And another from Shadow Operatives. We're not going to talk about all of them. Needless to say, the one that's for No Mercy, No Respite involves killing something. Battlefield Supremacy involves holding on to something. And Shadow Operations involves some kind of wibbliness. So, which one are we going to talk about?
I would like to go for the wibbliness, please, Dan.
No, we always like a bit of wibbliness. So, spread the sickness. Quite a terrifying prospect under current circumstances, but how might you go about spreading sickness, and what is the benefits within the confines of 40k?
I was about to say, you mentioned a COVID clause.
You're not supposed to mention COVID. Leave it out.
I know.
No one wants to hear about that. Everyone gets that all the time. We're trying to let them escape COVID.
All right.
Although stay safe, everybody.
Please stay safe. I need
that
people
was
to
a
roll
sincere
dice
statement,
against.
by the way. Don't be confused by my blasé delivery.
Delivery.
Please,
Okay.
Tim, save me from myself.
Okay. If you select this objective, then Death Guard infantry units in your army can perform the following action. Spread the sickness. 1 unit from your army can start to perform this action at the end of your movement phase if it is within 3 inches of an objective marker that has not been contaminated. A unit cannot start this action while there are enemy units, excluding aircraft, within 3 inches of the same objective marker. So the action is completed at the end of your turn. When this action is completed, you can choose one of the following. Roll 1d6. On a 4-up, that objective marker is said to have been contaminated. Or, I kind of like this second version. The unit performing this action suffers D3 mortal wounds, and that objective marker is said to have been contaminated. Score 3 victory points at the end of the battle for each objective marker on the battlefield that has been contaminated by a unit from your army.
And what is really good about this and makes it different from Raise the Banners is once something has been contaminated, you can't then clean it up afterwards, right? There's no one coming along in a hazmat suit with a hose pipe and fixing this. Once it's gone, right?
Yeah, there's nobody coming along to scrub down the objective marker, as it were. So
no amount of hand sanitizers getting you out of this mess.
No, not at all. What would be interesting, and then what would have been nice, I should have said, what would have been nice is if it actually gave it the contagion ability as well. That would have been cool.
But don't be one of those guys, Tim.
What, Phil? What? No, that's cool.
What if any contagioned objective by turn 4 has a 9-inch aura? That's madness.
Yes, it's great.
For those of you that obviously don't have a camera watching Tim wriggle around in excitement at that thought.
I mean, that is a perfectly legitimate, not overpowered secondary ability if it had that.
This to me seems like a secondary that needs its victory point accumulation addressed, right? Because don't get me wrong, if the only way of achieving this was the 4+ and it happens scenario, I would be totally fine with 3 victory points. The fact that you can choose to take D3 mortal wounds and guarantee it happening is, I think, very, very strong. Because you think about it, right? In most battlefield scenarios, it's super easy to do this turn 1 on at least 2 objectives. It's highly unlikely with the Death Guard that you're going to be able to do it on 3 objectives in turn 1. But you're definitely going to be able to do it on 2. Now, at the end of the battle... Oh, it's end... Okay, fine. In which case, no, it's absolutely appropriate that it's free. Sorry, I thought it was accumulating each turn.
Oh, it's not free per turn. No, it's free for the whole game. So.
Oh, well, that's fine.
But the thing is, Death Guard are so slow, so it's quite difficult to get on the sort of further field objectives. Now, in your opponent's deployment zone is either 1 predominantly, or maybe 2 objectives. Or if they're not in the deployment zone, they're sort of on the edge of deployment zone. So to get those 2 is probably going to be impossible unless you've got some fast-moving units. So when you do that action, was there a stipulation on that it can only be like kind of infantry corps?
It's just infantry.
Yeah, just infantry.
So things like the flying fetid bloat drones and stuff, could they do it? Or would they not be infantry? Okay.
No, they're not.
I'm trying to
bloat drones don't exist in this book.
It's going to be your Plague Marines, your Poxwalkers
and Cultists, I guess.
Cultists and your Termies.
I say bloat drones don't exist. When I think bloat drones, I'm thinking about the giant fly creatures from Age of Sigmar.
Yeah.
Those are bloat drones. What are the
it's floated bloat drone. So
okay, there we go. Yeah.
Apples and pears.
An infantry model can do this. So Mortarion can't do it, but Typhus could.
So I guess you could do it with, for example, things like Terminators that could deep strike, or you take your Poxwalkers and you pay some CP to put them in strategic reserve to outflank for like later turns, and then you don't really care if they're taking mortal wounds.
Well,
like you wouldn't really want to
just double check. Let me just double check Poxwalkers, because Poxwalkers of old were not allowed to do actions.
Ah, that would make sense.
There was a specific stipulation around them for some reason, I think, or at least I think.
I wonder if the cultists. I assume.
Yeah, so Poxwalkers are mindless hordes, so this unit cannot perform an action.
Okay,
well,
so it's not your Poxwalkers.
But maybe a reason to take your cultists if they can.
The one and only reason to consider cultists is they can perform actions.
Yeah, well, why not?
Although
the cultists might see play yet. Sorry.
Hang on, let me just double check something.
I sort of find it weird that you have cultists. It's like I get it thematically, but for an army, like the current cultist models don't fit Nurgle, and they tend to only look a bit kind of generic corny, if anything. Yeah, it's a bit odd. Like they'd almost just be like, you don't get them. Just have the poxwalkers instead as their proxy of mass infantry. It's like, why have both?
Well, yeah, but cultists are still a core element of any Chaos Space Marine faction, right? I mean, they always amass cultists. That's how they.
To me, cultists is something where you get a cult rising up on a planet, and then there's an invasion, and the cultists might perform a small bit, but it's like, are they doing it on the same scale as, say, Gene Stealer cults, where it's like a massive upright? Well, I guess
typically, Chaos Space Marines are well known for grabbing large, building large war bands of cultists around themselves to fling themselves at guns and then move in around them. I mean, it's a common tactic used by the Black Legion all the time. Is like they amass cultists for that purpose. They're just meat for the grinder. So I don't necessarily feel like the Death Guard would be any different, because at the end of the day, if you follow the fluffy version of the lore, the Death Guard Legion is limited in its capacity, whereas cultists are 10 a penny. So chuck them in, and then you can move around them, wade through them, do some damage.
Yeah.
Although they definitely should have introduced one of. So in the Orc Codex of, I think it was 7th edition Warhammer, or maybe 8th edition Warhammer, there used to be a special rule where orcs could charge through goblins. So in the game, it was impossible for units to charge for other units, but if it was a goblin unit, the orcs could go straight through them.
Yeah,
they just didn't care.
Yeah, that's how it should be, though. That's how it should be.
So, that was always genius. They need that for the cultists with Chaos Space Marines. Just like smash them out of the way just to get to where they're going. Anyway, there you go. So Shadow Operative, the old Spread the Sickness. It's actually, when you actually read it properly, it actually sounds pretty balanced. I mean, ultimately, obviously it's going to be hard to do it, but if you can do it, it's 15 points, which is strong, right? Because there's not any missions in the Grand Tournament pack with fewer than 5 objectives, right?
Yeah. I can't think of any.
No brainer. Awesome. All right. Well, then, let's talk about the next thing, the Plague Companies. Now, this is actually something, let's be honest with ourselves, we probably should have highlighted as a big change for these guys, which is now there are 7 different Plague Companies. Why 7, Tim?
Because 7 is the holy number of Nurgle.
7!
7!
The most powerful of numbers. 7 different flavours of Plague Companies. How do Plague Companies work, Tim? Please explain them to me.
So, Plague Companies help you add a little bit of flavour to your Death Guard army, but they open up specific warlord traits, a specific stratagem, and a relic. If you're going to pick a plague, when you pick a Plague Company, you can sort of build around it. You can just ignore it and just focus on the stratagem that you get with it, but I would say it's probably best to try and include as much as possible from it as well. So yeah.
So they're not like chapters where they get chapter traits.
No.
These are just essentially warlord traits, stratagems, and relics. So it's not like if I go, I am the Mortarian's Anvil. It's not then that I'm feel no pain 6+ natively, so I don't become like an Iron Hand. I just get some extra stuff.
That is correct. Yeah, you just get the choice to take some extra stuff.
Well, that's fair enough. So, is there any of these in particular you wanted to shout out? I mean, I'm conscious about time, so I don't want to necessarily go through every one of them. But are there any here that appeal to you more than others?
Yeah, there is one, and it's the Inexorable, and that is just because of the stratagem, really. So, with the Inexorable, you get Fereric Miasma, which is use this stratagem in your opponent's charge phase. When an Inexorable unit from your army is selected as a target of a charge, until the end of the phase, subtract 2 from the charge rolls made for any unit that declares a charge against that Inexorable unit to a minimum of 1. I quite like the sound of that, to be honest. Especially just to sort of, it's kind of like it's more of like a fail-safe to me. when you're deep striking in various Terminators and whatnot. And if you fluff your charge, then you kind of got a safety stratagem to fall back on if you're going to get charged in return.
I suppose in that scenario, you would have been 9 away, just over 9 away to declare the charge. You fluffed it. So realistically, even with your slow movement of maybe 4 or 5, they'd only need to then respond with a charge roll of 5, normally now 7.
Yeah. But
I mean, 7 is a much higher number than 5 in the grand scheme of things.
You never know.
You never know. It could add some flavour. I don't know if it's worth risking 1 CP on, though. Are you sure about that? Would you really... If someone was 5 inches away from you, would you pay the 1 CP to make it a 7?
Not if they were 5
obviously
inches.
You would, because you've called it out.
Yeah. If it was 5 or more, yeah. It's more like, say, if I deep strike in, I'm 9 inches away, right? Mm-hmm. I fail my charge. So then, yeah, they are going to move up. And then, I've just counted my own logic. Now, yeah, and I'm like, that's not actually as good as I thought it was.
Yeah.
Darn it.
Because most things that you will have been charging at probably have movement 6, so they'll be now 3 inches away from you. This is true.
But saying that, it would protect my Plague Marines on objectives and stuff.
Assuming they're getting charged.
Assuming they're getting charged. Which they most probably will be. Well, actually, no, they won't be because of contagion rules.
Exactly. No one wants to get involved with that noise. I mean, Phil, do you think that's worthy of praise? The old ferric miasma?
It's it's a niche thing. It's going to be very situational. Could be really useful though. Yeah, I mean, if someone's coming out of deep strike, surely you would use it just to make it super difficult for them to pull it off.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing I will say that the Warlord trait is quite tasty. So the Warlord trait is Ferric Blight. They love a Ferric. I don't know what Ferric is, but they love it in this particular detachment. Ferric Blight is a contagion. Whilst an enemy unit is within contagion range of this unit, each time an attack is made by a friendly inexorable model against that enemy unit, improve the armor penetration characteristics of their weapon by 1.
Yes, that is also quite tasty as well.
I mean, that is actually pretty good, because don't forget, that's not just combat attacks, that's ranged attacks as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if you're bringing, I don't know, they don't really have a huge abundance of heavy bolters in this list, do they? But if you're bringing an AP1 gun of some description, to the fact you can increase that AP to 2 just by having this dude standing potentially within 9 inches of them, it's pretty strong.
Yeah, super strong. Yeah.
And especially if you're going to bring like loads of flamers that are shorter range and just walk them around with the Warlord. I mean, Phil would not be a fan of that, right, Phil? AP minus 2 or 3 flamers coming at you? That wouldn't be good, would it?
No, thank you.
No, thank you. Less of that, please.
It would be like salamanders.
It would be like salamanders. It would be. And then what's their relic? They've got the old leech spore casket. The first time I read this, my dyslexia made me think it said cake. I don't know why. It's weird how dyslexia works sometimes. It's like casket became cake. It's because obviously it has a C and a K and an E.
Maybe it's not your dyslexia. Maybe you're just hungry.
Maybe you just want cake.
I thought you were going to say maybe it's not your dyslexia. Maybe you're just stupid.
How brutal. That would have been savage.
It's a combination of both elements, unfortunately. I can't win. So this one's a inexorable models only. Yep. Each time an enemy model is destroyed as a result of a melee attack made by the bearer, select one friendly inexorable vehicle model within 18 of the bearer. That model regains 1 lost wound. No more than 3 wounds can be regained per turn due to this relic. What scenario would that have any kind of relevance in?
It's very niche, but it's kind of cool. I suppose
with your drones or whatever.
Yeah, well, that's it. It's like you got your drones hanging about that might be in melee range with you, or sitting on the...
Well, within 18 of you. It's a long range.
Well, yeah, sitting on an objective far away, and you're just carving your way through.
Just like picking bits off someone and flinging it at it.
Yeah, because that's how it works. You're just literally blowing like flesh onto your little floated blow drone and be like, there
from 18 inches away, and that's a hell of an arm.
Yeah. Well, toughness 5, got to have some strength to lug that toughness about.
Yeah, exactly, right.
All that wobbly mess. It's got to make you strong.
Well, fair enough. So that's the second plague company, the Inexorable. There are two plague companies here that have Mortarion in the title.
Mm-hmm.
Assumingly, the Chosen Sons are his favourite ones.
I would say so.
Given that they are the 7th plague company. He's got a thing for 7, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Must be.
Do the rules reflect that, though, Tim? Are you a fan of the Mortarion's Chosen Sons?
I am also a fan of Mortarion's Chosen Sons.
Should we go through what they've got? What's their stratagem, Tim? It's 1 CP, Plague Brewers. What's that doing?
It is indeed. Use this stratagem in your shooting phase. When a Mortarion's Chosen Sons unit from your army is selected to shoot, until the end of the phase, Plague Belchers, Plague Spurt Gauntlets, and Plague Spewers models in that unit are equipped with have a damage characteristic of 2.
Ooh, that's tasty, considering that Death Shroud Terminators have got those gauntlets, right?
They do have those gauntlets, yeah. No AP with them, although there's probably a strat to change that, but still.
Possibly.
Oh, no, wait, you're with your Warlord.
Well, no, because you've just talked... The Warlord you're referring to is from a different company, yeah.
Damn it.
I know. Can't have it all, unfortunately. You got to make these choices.
Yeah, unfortunately so. Damn them for forcing my hand down this road.
I mean, when it comes to Warlord traits for Mortarion's Chosen Sons, they've got Nurgle's Fruit, which I can't imagine is especially appealing. Would you partake in Nurgle's Fruit, Phil? Would you want a bite of Nurgle's Fruit?
Yeah, of course. Sounds tasty.
Another perk of the job, clearly.
Exactly.
Nurgle's Fruit, Contagion. While an enemy unit is within contagion range of that unit, or this unit, each time an attack is made by a friendly Mortarion's Chosen Sons model against that unit, the target does not receive the benefit of cover.
Shock.
It's alright, isn't it? 9 inches of ignoring cover.
Not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Not bad.
That's what Mortarion does himself, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
The old beat stick.
Extra Mortarionness.
All the Mortarion.
And then their relic is some kind of thing. Models equipped with this plague sprayer only. Okay, with a plague sprayer only. This relic replaces the plague sprayer, and it's a range 12, assault 7, strength 7, -3, 2 damage.
Yeah.
Each time an attack is made with this weapon, that attack will automatically hit. So it's a assault 7, strength 7, -3, 2 damage flamer.
Yeah, which is pretty cool.
That's very cool.
How many of those can you field in an army, though? Like,
just
where
one.
do you get these weapons?
What, a plague sprayer?
Yeah, where do they go? They must have them with.
Is that on
What's weird about that though, as well, is that a weapon that typically comes with characters, or is that going to be something that you're putting on?
Isn't there that new character that they previewed that's coming out, or is now out?
Well, he has come out, yeah. But is he? I thought he was a named character. Is he not named?
No, the Lord of Virulence.
Yeah, is that not... so a Lord of Virulence could have this?
Yeah, he has a twin plague sprayer, which is 12-inch, heavy 2d6, strength 5, AP 1.
Oh, so technically he wouldn't be able to replace this because he's got a different weapon. He's got the twin variant.
Oh, yeah.
Because it doesn't say twin it just says a regular one. So you'd end up having to give it to a regular infantry dude.
In that case... Yeah... Your Plague Marines can have a Plague Sprayer, and your...
Terminators, I would assume?
Yeah, your Terminators could probably have one as well.
Well, there you go. Interesting, though, to have extra options. Is there anyone in particular here that Typhus belongs to? Is it the Harbingers? Is that a Typhus thing?
Yeah, that would be Typhus's...
Because it's the first Plague company, I'd assume that would be Typhus's gig.
Yeah, and
so this one is 1 CP, the Wrath... or the Wrathful Dead. I assume a play on the Hateful Dead or whatever that was. Although maybe not. Use this stratagem in the fight phase when the Harbinger's Poxwalkers unit is selected to fight. Until the end of that phase, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, you can re-roll the hit rolls. So you can have better Poxwalkers for 1 CP. Ooh.
Yay.
That does sound like a Typhus thing, though. He loves a Poxwalker.
He does love a Poxwalker. Like in the last edition, he was all about his Poxwalkers when he buffing them up.
He's then got a Warlord trait, or not Typhus specifically, but the Harbingers does. Do you want to take us through what that does, Tim?
Sure. Shamble Rot which is a contagion. While an enemy unit, excluding vehicle units, is within contagion range of this unit, at the start of your opponent's movement phase, roll 1d6, subtracting 1 if the enemy unit has the character keyword. On a 4+, the enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound. On a 6, the enemy unit suffers D3 mortal wounds.
Ooh. So that's like the old Mortarian ability, isn't it?
It's kind of making me think of the old Tyrannid Murloc that used to come up.
The Tyrannid Murloc?
Yeah, because that used to
Was
erupt.
it Morlock, you mean?
Morlock, sorry, not Murloc. I'm thinking World of Warcraft.
He's busy solving crimes.
Yeah, the Morlock. Oh, amazing. Yeah, the Morlock. Because he used to pop up from underground, and you'd roll 1d6 for each unit around, and if it was between a 2 and a 5, it was 1 mortal wound, and then the 6 was D3, and then they changed it in Psychic Awakening, but it just felt like it didn't do anything.
Well, this is like constantly going off, right? This isn't just, when I appear I do this. It's if you're within contagion range. On a 4+, you're taking 1 mortal wound. On a 6, you're taking D3. It's pretty tasty for what it is.
That is true. It is every movement phase, technically. So.
And then they've got the Infected Remains as a relic. Harbinger models only. Once per battle, at the end of your movement phase, you can select 1 objective marker within 3 of the bearer. Whilst the bearer is on the battlefield, that objective marker has the Contagion of Nurgle ability, Tim.
Yeah.
Look at that. It's there.
Yeah.
Clearly, you need to be taking these guys, mate. This is the Plague Company made for you.
I could do.
So many options.
So many options. Convinced.
He doesn't, does he? He's conflicted. He wanted his, extra 2 inches to charge ranges to work.
I know, right?
He was all about that.
I was so on board for that, and now you're just throwing a curveball. No, but that is pretty good. That is. But the thing is, that has to be, it's a relic, so that would probably go on your Warlord unless you paid for it to go on something else. So it is only on one person, so that person would have to be jumping around, and Death Guard are pretty slow. So
he only does it to what I think he can only do it to the 1, right?
Yeah, once per battle as well. So,
yeah, once per battle. So you're not needing to jump around. You just make a beeline for one very specific one, and you go, there you go. Bop,
done.
So if there's one in the middle of the battlefield, you just go, there it is.
Yeah, but I feel like the Plague Furnace is a much better option.
Well, we'll get to that in a moment,
exactly.
I suppose. In the interest of time, Tim, we've got stratagems, we've got psychic powers, we've got warlord traits, and we've got data sheets to go, and we've already been here for like an hour and 20 minutes.
So much.
Let's try and speed through, and why don't you tell me, you have, how many do you reckon's fair, Phil? 3 stratagems?
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, technically, we should somehow make all of his choices add up to 7.
I know, that's the problem, isn't it?
Maybe 3, and then 1 of something else.
Well, he could have 3, 2, 3, 2, 2. That'll do.
3, 2, 2.
3 stratagem. Well, you can pick your order. You can have 3 of any one of those categories, and then 2 of the others. So you can have either 3 stratagems, 3 warlord traits, or 3 psychic powers. Which will you pick?
I will take the 3 stratagems, please, Dan.
Of course you will.
Of course.
Tell us about a stratagem.
Let's choose wisely. Okay. A quick foreknote on stratagems, just before I dive into it. There seems to be a lot more shooting stratagems than there are in the fight phase kind of stratagems. There's some stratagems that you can do in both phases as well. So just a point to the listeners there. Anyway, I digress.
They become more shooty pew pew.
Yeah,
is it because they're already good at combat, so therefore they need less stratagems to help them out with that?
Maybe, but they haven't got high power damage output weapons really in the Death Guard. They don't have a lot of anti-tank. It is there, but you're not abundant with it. You do pay the price for it. Anyway, I digress. So the 3 stratagems I'm going to choose, and these are kind of like my old faithfuls, and I love them to bits, is Virulent Rounds, which is use this stratagem in your shooting phase. When a Death Guard core unit from your army is selected to shoot, until the end of the phase, bolt weapons that model are equipped with have the plague weapon ability, and that costs 1.
How many CP is that, Tim?
Just one. One CP.
Just the one?
Just the one, which is great. Then you can use another stratagem, which is called Overwhelming Generosity. Again, in your shooting phase, when a Death Guard unit from your army is selected to shoot until the end of the phase, add 6 inches to the range characteristic of plague weapons models in that unit are equipped with. So now you're rapid firing at 30 inches. If you have
Because obviously bolt weapons are plague weapons.
bolt weapons, well, you've made them plague weapons.
Your bolt guns and stuff are plague weapons, right?
Well, you've just made them plague weapons from virulent rounds. So yeah.
But I mean, are they not plague weapons by default?
No.
Okay,
No.
so you've got to spend the CP to make them plague weapons.
Yeah.
Okay,
In the same way as Death Watch don't get special
Yeah.
ammunition on every bolt gun, these guys don't get plague weapons all over the place.
Yeah. So that costs 1 CP as well. So
What was that one called again, Tim? Sorry?
Overwhelming Generosity.
Overwhelming Generosity.
Page
Blimey.
47,
Where's that
if you're
one?
following at home.
So the combination is you are overwhelmingly generous, and then you, or rather specifically, you start out by going, here is some virulent rounds, and then you make yourself overwhelmingly generous, and then you've got 30-inch range bolt guns with reroll 1s to wound.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's extra cool, I suppose, if you're using... I mean, again, not that I want to make a song and a dance out of it, but imagine that on 10 Blight Lord Terminators.
Or just your box standard
sensing a
plague
theme.
marines.
I know, right? I know, it's almost like Blight Lord Terminators are good now. But imagine that, because obviously Blight Lord Terminators can still move and shoot these things. So they would be getting 4 shots at range 30, re-rolling 1s to wound with bolt guns.
Yeah.
True.
It is pretty cool.
And then you stack some other things in there. They could be an extra -1 AP, and they could potentially ignore cover. Oh, what a time.
Having the time of your life.
Well, exactly. Well, for what little of it will remain if you're on the receiving end of that, I suppose. I mean, there's a good answer to the situation. I mean, wow.
Yeah.
Because, that would be 40 bolt gun shots. The Lords of Contagion don't give you reroll 1s to hit, though, do they?
They do now.
Oh, they do now.
Yeah. They are so...
baby.
So before it was just the Demon Prince that gave you the rerolls of 1s for hits. But now... Lord of the Death Guard aura. While a friendly Plague Marine Company core unit is within 6 inches of this model, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, re-roll, hit roll of 1.
Blimey.
So for shooting and fighting.
So so you could have 40 old shots from a 10-man unit, re-rolling 1s to hit, re-rolling 1s to wound.
Yep.
Potentially -1, potentially ignoring cover.
Potentially.
Blimey heck. That ain't bad.
Yeah,
What's your last stratagem, Tim?
So I think this is a new one, so apologies if it's not, but I think it's kind of cool. It's called Eruption of Filth, and it costs 1 CP. And it's...
an Eruption of Filth does sound lovely. I've got visions now of... Wasn't it an episode of The Simpsons where Homer Simpson was stuffing rubbish into a mine shaft, and then all of a sudden the rubbish started spewing out of Springfield?
Yes, there was that. It was like...
Wasn't it that Flanders was burying his pet rabbit and then it got spewed out with like garbage onto the surface?
Poor Ron.
And there was me thinking you were just going to make a joke about like my secretary again.
No. We're leaving your secretary out of it. The poor thing doesn't need to be brought into this side of things. Although, would you call your secretary an eruption of filth?
I mean, if I had one, of course I would. But I don't.
Is that going to be in the job description when the time
It will be now.
Yeah. You have to be an eruption of filth.
prone to an eruption?
So what happens? Does she just walk into your office and throw a rubbish basket at you and be like, there you go, an eruption?
Hey, Tim. You're assuming that it has to be a she. That's it. Very.
Sorry. Yes, I apologise.
No,
it can happen in all fields.
Exactly.
Could be a
I'll
rabbit.
get Joe in as my secretary.
I mean, that is an eruption of filth.
Exactly.
That's why Steve hired him.
No. Enough of that. Let's carry on.
Okay, so use this stratagem in any phase. Select one Death Guard character model from your army is destroyed. Instead of using any other rules that are triggered when a model is destroyed, e.g. the Putrid Explosion ability, before removing the model from play, roll 1d6 for each other unit within 3 inches of it, excluding Nurgle units. On a 2 to 5, suffers 1 mortal wound. On a 6, suffers d3 mortal wounds. And I know I complained about it doesn't really do much with the other stratagem of the old Morlock, but it's a character and nobody expects the character to pop, so you never know, you might just get off that 1 mortal wound that you needed to do to that character that just killed your character.
It's a nice little sting in the tail, right? It's a nice little surprise for when, and again, as an Elder player, I've used Phoenix Gem so much over the course of 8th edition and early 9th edition, because it's just such a potent ability. Admittedly, unlike Phoenix Gem, you're not coming to back to life after this happens, but you can do a lot of really amusing kind of like baiting with this, where you can invite people into situations where they might want to, really get rid of something, or to put a lot of pressure onto it to get rid of it. Very good at doing sort of sneaky duels against other characters and things like that. So if you're up against, I don't know, maybe you've whittled down an enemy character to quite a low amount of wounds, and then you kind of entice them into a combat situation, and then the eruption of filth occurs. Joe comes bursting in. It all goes terribly wrong.
Again, situational, but really useful actually. So it's only on a 4 up, right, and then on a 6 up you're doing how much damage on a 6 up? Was it d6?
No, so it's a 2 to a 5. You do 1 mortal wound.
Oh, 2 to 5 is 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and then
how much 2
damage?
plus you do 1, 6 you do d3.
Yeah, I mean that's not too bad. Yeah, and the fact that it goes off on a 2 and not like a 4 up is actually quite useful.
Yeah.
But like I said, a lot of things, 1 extra mortal wound might not make much difference. But against like a character or something that's quite tough, chipping away any wounds is quite useful. So
also though, because it's multiple, it can affect multiple units as well, right? So you can sometimes position it so as you get 3 units in 3 inches of you.
Yeah, that would be good.
There's been times where on Tabletop Simulator where I've had my Lord of Contagion surrounded by 3 different units, and the character's always on that 1 wound, and it's like, oh. I just
now you can get him on just a 2+. Bam, dead.
Yeah, exactly. Take that.
That's all you need, man. All you need. Well, there you go. Those were your 3 stratagems.
They were indeed.
So why don't you tell us about 2 not deadly pathogens, the 2 warlord traits.
Ah, the warlord traits. Okay.
We may as well talk about the revoltingly resilient, because I suppose that's interesting.
Yeah, can do.
So
because
revoltingly resilient is basically old school disgusting resilience, right?
Yeah, that's your 5 up, don't lose a wound. Oh, disgustingly resilient. So you can get it back on your warlord and stuff, which is quite nice. Or if you pay for it to go onto another named character. So it's still kicking about. Mortarion obviously has it straight away.
Well, Mortarion has 3 warlord traits, right?
Yeah, he does.
I mean, we may as well talk about all 3 he gets. He's got revoltingly resilient, living plague, and arc contaminator.
Yeah. So living plague is while an enemy unit is within 3 inches of this warlord, that unit cannot be affected by aura abilities, excluding those that are psychic powers of units from your opponent's army, which is amazing.
Yeah, that's massive.
Like cancelling out auras is incredible. Just imagine if you could buff that range as well.
Well, that's crazy as well, though, right? Because one of the best tricks that Space Marines have, certainly against things like your Blight Lord Terminators again, is Null Zone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, Null Zone is a 6-inch aura, I think, and in that 6-inch aura, it takes away invulnerable saves.
Oh, didn't they just say it doesn't affect psychic powers?
Yeah.
Is that what it says?
Yeah, it does say it doesn't affect psychic powers.
Can't! Alright, fair enough, I apologise. Then in which case, fine.
Yeah.
Still good, though.
And then Arch Contaminator, which is while the friendly plague company core unit is within 6 inches of this warlord, each time a model in that unit makes a melee attack with a plague weapon, you can reroll the wound roll, which is the good, reroll any wound roll, which is quite nice. And then each time a model in that unit makes a ranged attack with a plague weapon that targets a unit within 12 inches, you can reroll the wound roll.
It's pretty strong.
Pretty strong. Definitely pretty strong. So yeah, he gets some lovely abilities. There was one in between that, which was Hulking Physique, which is add 1 to the wound characteristics of a warlord. Each time an attack is made against this warlord, an unmodified wound roll of 1 to 3 for the attack fails, irrespective of any abilities that the weapon of the model making the attack may have.
I mean, that's strong. Imagine a unit of Terminators with that ability. Good old Dark Angels. Although soon to change. But that way at the minute. Yeah, it's crazy, man. You've you've doubled your 2.
I know.
We're going to talk about 2. Now it's become 4. It's my fault, really. But you squeezed in the 4th. You just snuck it in there.
Well,
I know.
You did 3 of them, Dan, and then Tim did 1. So technically he did more.
Well, all right. Yeah, fair enough. I just like the sound of my own voice, as many people obviously already understand. Do you want to talk about the contagion discipline? What's going on with that?
Yeah. So good old psychic powers. I'm going to pick my trusty 2 that I love, which is Miasma of Pestilence. So this is a blessing, which I don't. Does that mean anything these days?
They've started to indoctrinate some meaning to those words. Okay. It's just general terminology to describe an effect, although it doesn't necessarily consistently have any kind of repercussions in game yet. It seems that they're trying to build a common language that they can pull upon for future updates, I would imagine.
All right, okay. I remember it's vaguely similar to 7th for me. But anyway, sorry. Miasma of Pestilence has a warp charge value of 6. If manifested, select 1 friendly Death Guard unit within 18 inches of the Psyker until the start of your next psychic phase. Each time an attack is made against that unit, subtract 1 from the attack's hit roll.
Tasty.
Super tasty.
Very good on Death Shroud Terminators, I hear.
Very good on Death Shroud Terminators. Sense my theme very much. Anyway,
indeed.
And then the second one is a Putrescent Vitality, which has a warp charge value of 7. If manifested, select 1 friendly Death Guard infantry unit within 18 inches of this Psyker until the start of your next psychic phase. Add 1 to the strength and toughness characteristic of models in that unit.
Tidy.
Which is also pretty nice. So you're just kind of trying to make them a bit more durable and a bit more beefy in the fight phase.
Nothing's better than an even more durable thing. I mean, what a treat.
Yeah, but I mean, the +1 strength combos really well with the -1 toughness on your target as well. So that could really make the difference between wounding something on a 5 to a 4 or 4 to a 3 or a 3 to a 2.
Yeah, it's huge, isn't it?
Yeah. What's the toughness of a Titan?
8.
So the contagion takes it down to a 7. I'll theorise
that. So the scythes and the Death Shroud give you some pluses? They probably give you some
pluses, they do.
Right?
If you use the single attack kind of variant, it gives you +3 to your strength.
There you go, so you're winning them on 3s.
So there you go.
Rerolling 1s most likely, because it's probably a plague weapon as well, right?
Yeah, and you hit on 2s, and it's minus...
Rerolling 1s probably, because it's probably near someone that lets them do that.
Yep.
It's right, isn't it?
-3, 2 damage each.
Slapping people about. Ooh. They sound like a world of fun.
They sound like
well, look, guys,
anyways.
There are relics and there are deadly pathogens, but we're not going to take a huge amount of time talking about those. Deadly pathogens are extra things that you can give weapons because, again, Games Workshop seem to love at the moment throwing layer upon layer of extra stuff that you're never going to remember onto this. So for a relatively nominal amount of extra points, you can chuck in a bunch of extra stuff, which makes things better. And then relics, you know what the deal is with relics, a bunch of extra stuff that makes you extra better in different ways. But we probably don't want to get into too much depth, because I think what we want to talk about is data sheets, and also we want to try and answer some questions from our friends in the community that have reached out to us and offered us some questions. So my proposal is this, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
You pick 3 data sheets, I'll pick 1 data sheet, and Phil will pick 1 data sheet, and then we will have done enough data sheets that it is interesting and intriguing.
And the
because
holy
I'm, going to be all self-important, I'm going to start, because I'm clever like that. I'm going to talk about the miasmic malignifier, because that is a thing, and it's interesting. So
is that the new terrain piece?
That is the new terrain piece, yeah. So I wanted that to be included because it's interesting, because it's a terrain piece. It's a terrain piece with 12 wounds, toughness 8, and a diminishing strength characteristic as it gets weaker and weaker, and that has an impact on some of its other rules. Essentially, its weapon is the Noxious Stink. So again, similar to... I won't pile on Joe again. Similar to myself, the Noxious Stink, which is range 6, heavy, 2d6, strength 4, -1/1 damage. Each time an attack is made with this weapon, that attack automatically hits the target. It's got disgusting resilience. It's also got contagions of Nurgle, which is important. And it's also got toxic presence. This model counts the battle round as being 4. So essentially it has its maximum contagion range from the outset, which is super cool. It's got Putrid Explosion. When this model is destroyed, roll a d6 before you remove it. On a 4+, it explodes, and each unit, excluding Nurgle units within 6, suffer d3 mortal wounds. So a 4+ explosion is pretty cool.
Pretty good.
You've also got Putrescent Fog, something like that.
Yep.
While friendly Death Guard infantry units are wholly within 6 of this model, it receives the benefits of light cover. If it was already receiving the benefits of light cover, then each time an attack is made against that unit, subtract 1 from the attack's hit rolls. So, given that you can place this thing pretty much anywhere, and I'll get to that in a minute, obviously slap it next to some ruins, extra fun.
Yep.
Then you've got Seeded Growths. During deployment, when you set up on the battlefield, you can be set up anywhere on the board as long as you are 12 inches away from your enemy's deployment zone and 12 inches away from any other enemy models. Furnace terrain feature wholly within 6 of it and more than 12 away from enemy models. So yeah, so there's 2 parts of it basically. After the miasmic malignifier furnace terrain features is set up on the battlefield, you can then set up 1 pox furnace. So it comes as a little 2-parter. You've got a little pox furnace and then the bigger thing, and they go together and they're all a lovely happy family. And the pox furnace specifically, the pox furnace is an obstacle terrain feature with the following terrain traits as described in the Warhammer 40,000 core book: light cover, heavy cover, unstable position, difficult ground. If a miasmic malefier is destroyed, its pox furnace is also destroyed. So it's a terrain feature that can go anywhere on the board outside of 12 inches of an enemy and or your opponent's deployment zone. It itself is giving off the aura of Contagion of Nurgle, which is -1 to toughness, and it also has its toxic presence. Sorry, not its toxic presence. It's putrescent fog, which means that things around it are treated as being like cover. I think it's pretty fantastic. Points-wise, it'll cost you a princely...
75.
How much?
75.
75 points. Phil, would you pay 75 points?
Can I ask a question? I presume it can't hold objectives in any way.
Correct, yeah. So it
cannot hold objectives.
Cannot hold objectives.
But it is really good because you can basically put it in the mid-board next to objectives. In fact, you could put it in between 2 objectives, so its aura of contagion affects 2 objectives. If it's on a piece of well, not in a ruin, but near a ruin, you're giving your units -1 to hits. That is pretty cool. And those units could be not on an objective, but within range of an objective to capture it and hold it while being -1 to hit, and therefore you don't really want to go near them to shift them off. Yeah, is that -1 to hit? Specifically for shooting?
It's
for everything.
Everything, but you got to be in existing light cover as well. So
Yeah, so you have to be inside the light cover and within.
So what? Even if you're both in the ruins doing combat, you're still -1 to hit?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Madness. Yeah, I mean, I would pay 75 points for that. Seems pretty solid.
Well, so to be specific, it states that you need to be receiving the benefits of light cover.
So you wouldn't in combat because you don't get the benefits of cover.
Correct. Yeah. So you wouldn't get the benefits of light cover in that instance.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. It's still good though. I think
great.
The minus. I think just for aura ability alone is super worth it. I mean, you could argue like your units will be in the midboard turn 2 onwards anyway, so therefore do you need it to also do that? But the fact that it's immediately off-putting for your opponent to want to go near them, the fact that you could you could use it either not right on the midboard on those objectives but near your deployment zone, so from turn 1 you've got a bunch of guys in cover and they're -1 to hit. That's really cool. It means they don't have to go behind the ruins to be obscure, and because you're slow, you want to be up on that deployment edge as much as possible. Lots of interesting options with that, I think.
The thing that's really extra weird about it is the fact that it comes in 2 pieces, and the second piece has a number of other beneficial rules to it that you can start to muck around with. And the thing is with that as well is, and again, thinking more about how ITC terrain features work, and again noting that I've said many times I'm not hugely keen on that, but you can very comfortably put one of these in a ruin where the line of sight is blocked for it entirely, add the -1 to hit benefit for things that might be on top of that ruin, add the cover effects of things that are outside of that, but then you can also use the pox furnace as another little barrier that will exist, so yet another space that you can potentially maneuver between or use to block vehicles or block things from being able to pressure you in those ruins. So you can position the furnace, the furnace in a place where you can prevent certain types of units interacting with that ruin as well. So you can do some real dodgy shenanigans with it.
Am I right in thinking you couldn't place it inside a ruin, or is there any stipulation?
There's nothing saying you can't place it within a ruin.
Yeah.
Other than your own conscience.
Oh, of course, but I'm talking about competitive play here. Consciences don't apply.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, so at what point do you deploy it? Is it sort of as you're deploying your army, you just put it down?
Yeah, it's just during deployment.
Yeah.
That's when it says. So you place it like any unit.
Oh, okay. Right, that makes sense.
So it's probably one of the first things you'll place because, well, it will be. And obviously, this is one of those ones that if you're a Marine player, because they're really the only people now that have access to stuff that can infiltrate. If you're a Marine player or a Nurgle Demon player, you're going to want to very quickly take your unit of infiltrators or, your Nurglings and plonk them somewhere to stop this thing from, applying pressure to you.
True.
Again, yet another reason why infiltrators are so valuable, because, you need a big unit of them to just deny this thing from going somewhere if you have that option.
So a question I have is, it's 9 inches contagion range. Mm-hmm. Is that measured from the little furnace as well? Because if you're moving the furnace 6 inches away, then you've just added 6 inches to that contagion range.
So a pox furnace is an obstacle terrain feature with the following terrain traits as described in the Warhammer 40,000 core rulebook: light cover, heavy cover, unstable position, difficult ground. If a miasmic, so I would suggest no, because it doesn't have the rules that the miasmic malignifier has. So you treat the miasmic malignifier as its own thing, and then randomly there's a small terrain feature that basically works as difficult ground and an unstable position and light and heavy cover.
Yeah, I felt like it was worth mentioning because it's obviously not as clear, because some people might play it that way.
No, indeed. I'm sure a lot of people will try and play it that way, but it's definitely not the way
I guess the fact that it has light cover is just ensuring that your Maligifier, whatever it's called, always can give a unit -1 to hit, because there's guaranteed light cover within range of that aura ability. So that's quite a handy little thing.
Well, that's true. Although, again, when you actually look at the size of the thing, the idea of you actually getting light cover off of it is pretty tough. Although it is an obstacle, so technically
if you're
you just
on
need
the
to
other
have it
side,
between you. Yeah. So actually, it's not that difficult.
But I guess it's quite small. So
yeah, it's a dinky little onion, little shallot.
It's a nice way to stop deep striking as well, as Phil was mentioning, like having it in your backfield and stuff. You could use it.
Oh yeah, because it is a unit, right?
Yeah,
so
that's quite good.
Not bad. Phil, do you have a specific unit that you want to hear about, noting that you don't have the Codex in front of you?
I do, actually. I want to talk about the classic Plague Marines.
Yeah.
The classic Plague Marines. Phil, you're always good for a classic.
Well, because obviously they've gone up in stats, or we've talked about it before, the two wounds now. The thing I really wanted to talk about was the fact that they've changed their loadout options.
That is true.
To be
I noticed that was a question from the community. Wasn't it? Who gave us that one?
Oh, I'd have to check. Hold on.
You got to name check this individual. It's probably just Cantor Blue again.
Cantor Blue is a popular one. I think it was. Well, so actually, Folkstorm, old Toke, mentions it at the very bottom of his comment. I'll read out his whole comment. He says, I'm getting a feeling, deja vu, feel like we did this at the beginning of 8th. The rabble fears the game will be broken, while Death Guard players curse the Pantheon for their misfortune. I'm personally going to reserve my opinion for what you guys have told me what it should be. Shrug emoji. And then he says, though the whole stick to the box build sounds insane. And then 2-Bit Paints chips in and basically says... he bets a lot of people will be cursing Games Workshop for removing the triple special weapons, i.e. plasma guns, on 5-man Plague Marine units, or removing the Combi Plasma from the Blightlord Terminators. And he talks about, I'm about to build some Havoc squads with Reaper chain cannons, which was the gun you were thinking about earlier. Using the he was going to use the Horus Heresy ones for 40k, but now he's a bit worried that they won't be valid in the future. And then the conversation carries on a little bit there. So I think that's an interesting one. In fact, 2-Bit Paints makes his own comment about prior to that as well, about how there's restrictions on the plague weapons and Blightlord Terminators to match what comes in the kits. It took me a few attempts to wrap his head around it. And then he talks about sort of second weapon options being dependent on 10-man units, not 7. Obviously, the 7 being a magic number. And also the mace and the axe is being the same option. He then also talks about how the spawn with a strat is a real hidden gem, which we can talk about later.
Spawn, in the general sense, when it comes to Chaos Space Marines, are actually a gem. Their points reduction has been amazing. But I suppose what's interesting about this change with Plague Marines and the fact that they're now having loadouts that are dependent upon what comes in the box is the fact that they haven't extended the same stipulation to the Space Marines that have come before them.
Well, they did, and then they changed their mind because everyone complained.
Oh, really?
So, beginning of 8th edition, I believe, when the new Primaris came out, you were limited to what was in the box, especially predominantly for Primaris intercessors. And everyone was like, oh, where's my chainswords? Where's my power fists? Where's all these extra options that I used to be able to kit bash together or, have with my tactical marines? Same with captains and lieutenants or lieutenants. And then what they did is they basically gave you loads of lieutenants with different options. They gave you the weapon upgrade kits, or they gave you like a special, sergeant character that had these options. So you got a trickle down of you suddenly got sergeants being able to have heavy sort of hand flamers and a power fist. I think was like the first option, and then sort of a bit later on they were like, I'll just have anything, like, whatever, have thunder hammers, like, we don't have a model for it, but just do it. So yeah, I think with 8th edition they really wanted to be, you get what's in the box. That's what they were doing with Age of Sigmar. It does really limit your options though, but it sort of makes sense from someone new getting into the game. It's like, cool, you can take 7 Havoc chain cannons or however many, but it's like, but you get 1 in the box. So have you got to buy 7 boxes just to get 1 weapon option, or have you got to go to like a third party, or
I have to
again,
I got to be honest, I don't love it. I think they didn't do it to Devastator squads, they haven't done it to tactical squads, they haven't done it to a number of things. Interestingly, Sisters of Battle had this stipulation with their canonesses. So canonesses in the existing Sisters book do not have options to be customized beyond the kind of rigid remit that their kits have. But that seems fair enough given the fact that it's a whole range refresh, and those kits actually have got a reasonable amount of options. You've got plasma pistols, bolt guns.
I think you can't necessarily go, oh, we must include this old weapon option because an old metal mini had it on them. It's like they've gone to Legends, you get what's in the plastic. But it does limit creativity, customization, and kit bashing, which, from a sort of fun game point of view, is something really important, and it is part of a hobby that should be encouraged.
I think it's unfair to people that have taken the time, spent the money, and put the effort in. Yeah,
so a lot of pre-existing Death Guard players would have made these conversions where they've given them sort of multiple axes or multiple I don't know what else is in their war gear options, but there's a bunch of different options, and now you get 1 of each because that's all you get in the kit. So does really penalise those people that have gone out of their way to make those conversions.
It does also make their datasheet really inelegant in so much as the war gear option section of this is really long.
The way it's written is clunky.
Yeah, it's like, come on, guys, like, just, again, like, there was a certain elegance to the old system, which was, here's a bunch of weapon options under these categories. You can have a combat weapon, a specialist weapon, a heavy weapon. Depending on how many people you have in the unit, you can take this many of each thing. That was relatively straightforward to understand. Okay, fair enough. It created these optimizations, so people were like, I need more plasma guns. And in certain instances, I agree that maybe doing this is the right way. I think, like, for example, Tempestus Science. If they do this to Tempestus Science, I'll be okay with that, because the plasma gun model on the Tempestus Science sprue is very, very specific. It just so happens that spamming plasma guns on Tempestus Science is really strong. So you either end up with loads and loads of the same pointy dude with the plasma gun slung over his left arm, or you end up with a load of weird conversion things, which is fine, obviously, if people are doing that, but I do think it creates a bit of a weird scenario. So in that respect, I think it's weird. I can understand why they're doing it. I just find it really strange that they did it specifically to these guys now, especially when they didn't do it to Tactical Marines, Assault Marines. Well, Assault Marines they have sort of done it to, because the Assault Marine box actually does come with all the options that you can take in the squad. But yeah, Devastators, for example, they're not limiting you to 2 heavy bolters, 2 missile launchers, 1 multi-melter, 1 plasma cannon, or whatever. They're just going.
I guess they've gone. The horses bolted on that one because it's such an old kit. People would have gone like.
And probably that they're looking to discontinue it at some point soon, right?
Yeah, who knows?
Who
That's
knows?
a talk for another topic.
But bar the fact that all their gear is shifted, I mean, in terms of their stat line, their movement 5, weapon skill, ballistic skill 3+, strength 4, toughness 5, 2 wounds, 2 attacks, leadership 7, and a 3+ save, which is drastically improved. They've got malicious volleys, they're remorseless, disgusting resilience, contagion of Nurgle, and then they've also got vectors of death. A plague marine equipped with 2 melee plague weapons has an attack characteristic of 3.
It's not bad.
It's not bad.
Yeah, I think the main benefit for them is going to 2 wounds and also being -1 damage. That keeps them super resilient to a lot of the damage to guns that are sort of flying around at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, heavy bolters are going to really struggle with these guys, right? Like, you know, the heavy bolter for the longest time, well not the longest time, but for the last 6 months has seemed like this amazing anti-marine choice, whereas now it's not nearly quite so good. They're clocking in at 21 points a model, so they're 1 point more than a Primaris Space Marine. They've got as many attacks, as many wounds, their movement is less, but their toughness is more, and their generic ability is quite strong.
Yeah.
It feels like they should probably be the same point costs as Primaris Marines, but I can understand why they've just ever so slightly tweaked them and made them 1 point extra.
I'm surprised they're not a couple points more, because +1 toughness and -1 damage, that's massive.
But then different flavours of Space Marines have different abilities that benefit.
Well, that's true.
Ways,
yeah,
right?
I guess if you're looking at it as a much wider thing, then maybe it balances out overall.
Yeah. Well, you compare it to, say, Iron Hands with 6-up Feel No Pain, like their, and some other stuff that they've got. I think they've got they Overwatch on 5+, don't they, or something?
I thought you
Again,
were making out those Plague Surgeons with the 6-up Feel No Pain were rubbish.
No, I'm just saying as a point of comparison. At the end of the day, you're paying 20 points and it's a native ability to have a 6-up Shrug. You're not paying 21 points plus 75 points to do it. Right?
Well, yeah, that's true.
I think they're a great unit, though. I dare say that they are not going to see nearly enough play because the Blightlord Terminators are so good by comparison.
Are they also troops then?
No,
elites,
they're not.
Right.
Yeah.
They're elites, but they're just that good that you will probably see them in just greater abundance.
Yeah. I at least like the rules that sort of limit the amount of pox. So, the old Poxwalker spam is thematic to an extent, but was also just a bit egregious at the same time. So the fact that they've kind of limited that, and you are going to see actual Plague Marines on the tabletop is nice. I think that they're bringing the kind of core flavour and character back to the army.
I think
Definitely.
if I was building a Plague Marine, or rather a Death Guard army right now, I would be looking at 3 units of regular Plague Marines. I don't think I would muck around with Poxwalkers too much, because their inability to do actions is massively negative. So I think I probably would just go 3 5-man units of Plague Marines. Would be my shout.
I think the Poxwalkers went up to toughness 4 though, so they're pretty good.
They did go up to toughness 4, but they're really slow. They're just, it's just one of those things where I just think the Plague Marines are just better.
Oh, wait.
Well, obviously they're better, but
I've got another question about another data sheet.
Go on.
Is the tree in the book?
no,
Imagine that.
the tree is gone.
Tree. Forgot about the tree.
I guess they've probably gone, this is a kind of Nurgle demon terrain piece now, not specifically.
It was one of the first things I looked at when the book landed in my through my letterbox on Saturday. I was like, right, do they have the tree? That was like literally one of the first things I went to check.
Yeah, it's well, imagine if you're a Nurgle player, but you're not really into demons, but you had the tree. That would be a kick in.
Proxy it as a furnace.
Well, I guess, easy enough.
Or just take it on the chin. I mean, every Nurgle player that was rocking trees was also rocking the other demon stuff that went along with it.
and all the plague bearers and stuff, so you're probably okay.
Yeah, well, you'll probably be fine.
Yeah.
Tim, do you want to pick the first of your 3 data sheets?
Yes, I would like to. Thank you very much. My first one is actually going to be the Tallyman.
The Tallyman?
Yeah, the Tallyman.
Tallyman.
The Tallyman! Okay, so the Tallyman, he has a movement of 5, weapon skill of 3, ballistic skill of 3, strength 4, toughness 5, wounds 4, attacks 4, leadership 8, and a 3-up save. He comes with a plasma pistol, blight grenades, and crack grenades, which is okay, it's fine. But the reason I have chosen him is because in your malicious calculation, in your command phase, this model can tally for one friendly Plague Company core unit within 6 inches of it. Until the start of your next command phase, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, add 1 to the attack's hit roll for each unit. Each unit can only be tallied for once per turn. So that's kind of cool. But the other reason is the 7-fold chart. At the start of your command phase, if this model is on the battlefield, roll 2d6. On a 7+, you gain 1 command point, which I kind of like. I'm always blowing through my command points.
So the tally man is there, and he's just rapidly trying to add things up on his abacus to get to 7.
Yep. Always trying to get to 7. It's like trying to watch Rachel Riley get to 7.
I'll have a constant, please. Another vowel, please.
Another vowel, please.
Is that what he's shouting out on his little?
Yeah.
Vox
He's basically saying, "I'll have 4 big ones, 2 little ones, and the number you've got to make is 7."
Should be saying,
do
"Can
that.
I have another contagion, please?"
Another contagion, please. And as he's running along the battlefield, boom.
You can have 1+1 to hit, and you can have +1 to hit, and you can have a command point. Yeah,
the Taliban.
Yeah.
I do hate the model, can I say? I literally, as soon as it ever came out, it's like, you're joking me. It's like some dude with an abacus. It's
yeah, it's not great. Also, like, he's got the big speaker thing going on above his head. I would probably just lop that off. I'm not a fan of too much headwear going on, or anything that extends too much above their head as well.
I mean, it's very Nurgle, right? Because again, obviously there was the old Epidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibidibid So it's cool that they've kind of indoctrinated that weird obsession with the number 7 into the list. But yeah, it's quite cool. What's your next one, Tim?
My next one is going to be the old faithful Lord of Contagion. I'm not going to speak about the new dude. The reason being is because do you want me to go through the stat profile or just why I chose him?
Please go through the stat profile. You chose him. Let's hear about him.
Okay, so movement 5, weapon skill 2, ballistic skill 2, strength 4, toughness 5, wounds 6, attacks 5, leadership 9, 2 up save. He comes with the Man Reaper, which has 2 attack profiles. You choose one when making an attack. So his cleave is +3, which is +3 to strength, AP -3, 2 damage, and it's a plague weapon. But you have to subtract 1s from the attack's hit rolls, but you get
fair enough
+1 from the aura. So I know you don't because he's not a core. Yeah, so you'll be hitting on 3s with that. Or you get the Scythe attack characteristic, which is +1 to strength, -1 to AP, and 1 damage. Again, it's a plague weapon, but this time you get to make 2 hit rolls instead of 1. So you're making 10 attacks.
Nice.
So that's quite cool. You can also, I believe you can swap it out for the Plague Reaper, which is strength ×2, AP 3, D3, again, plague weapon, and again, subtract.
D3 or flat 3?
Sorry, flat 3. Which again, you subtract 1 from the hit rolls as well. So that's cool. And then,
pretty good though for a plague weapon, right? I mean, strength 8, hitting on 3s, wounding on most things, going to be wounding on 2s, especially with your -1.
Yeah.
To their toughness. So, yeah, not too shabby. With re-rolling 1s to wound.
Which is pretty tasty. And then you got the Orb of Desecration if you took the Plague Reaper, which is a grenade. Has a 6-inch range. It's 3d3 grenade attacks. Strength 4, AP 1, 2 damage. It's a blast and a plague weapon, but you can only shoot it once per battle. So
because they're accounting for within the Lord of Contagion, so they're accounting for the Lord of Contagion that came in Dark Imperium. Mm-hmm. So that's the one that's going to be armed with the Plague Reaper. Mm-hmm. And then they're also accounting for the easy build guy with the real weird, like, Cheshire Cat grin, aren't they? That had, like, the weird green grenade that he was holding up.
Oh, yeah.
Because he has, like, that weird, like, orb, which is what this orb of desiccation is. and then he's also got the Man Reaper. So that's basically what they're accounting for there. So there's the two flavours of Lord of Contagion.
Yeah, I remember
Neither
that.
of which you can buy anymore.
No. Well,
or can you buy the easy build one now?
You can buy the easy build one through the magazine, can't you? What was the magazine?
The magazine's long gone.
That's the magazine's pretty much at the end. Well, it finished its run a while ago. There's still got some issues in stock, but the ones that are left are either the paint or some of the terrain stuff. Because I was looking at that this week. So yeah, you can't get that squad through them.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
There's no easy build options on the website.
No, well, we talked about that a while ago. Like the Primaris easy build stuff all went, and I think that's when the Death Guard stuff went as well. Which is a shame because some of them were like really good kits. Like the Blight Lord Terminator one was like amazing value for money, I thought.
Yeah, so they've actually got rid of that kit. That's crazy. They must be bringing that back.
I don't know. Or they'd be doing new easy build, because I was like, maybe they've discontinued it because of the Indomitus, basically. It was around a similar time. So they've sort of gone...
That's crazy. So they've literally... The Lord of Contagion is two flavours of the same thing, neither of which you can buy.
Yeah. So you better have one.
Maybe they will bring it back via... I mean, it's not in the Start Collecting box, weirdly, but in another form of box set like that down the line.
Yeah.
But the reason I chose him is because he now gets Teleport Strike. He didn't have that before, which is quite nice. And also, as well as like the Contagion ability. And he gets to add 3 to his Contagion range of all Contagion abilities to a maximum of 12. So that's kind of cool. But also, we mentioned it earlier, while a friendly Plague Company core unit is within 6 inches of this model, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, reroll a hit roll of 1.
Lovely.
So that's quite a nice addition as well. And then for my third unit...
Are we going to talk about Death Shroud Terminators now?
Yeah.
We're not talking about Mortarion.
We talked about Mortarion 2 episodes ago.
Oh.
We could, but everybody... Do you want to talk about
Everyone's talking about Mortarion.
Surely
spoilers, everyone. Mortarion's real good.
And he's going to get nerfed. Like, all of this is going to get
nerfed. Don't get too excited. He's getting nerfed.
Do you really think that? Because obviously, Joe was all like, "Oh, he's not that good. He died when I played him." It was Joe though, so to be fair.
So
we're really piling on him.
Why not? Why not? He's not. He can't defend himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, damn him.
So the thing is, should he not be that good? Like, do you not think a big Lord of War Primarch model should be?
I think he needs to be a few more points.
Well, maybe
I think points are the solution with him.
Yeah,
he's like 485 points.
But I've heard Death Shroud Terminators are good, Tim. But why?
Well, let me tell you why. So again, the classic movement of 5, hitting you on 2s for a weapon skill, ballistic skill of 3, strength 4, toughness 5, wounds 3, base attacks of 4. Unless you're the champion, you get 5. Leadership of 8 and a 2+ a 2-up save. They come with Plague Spurt gauntlets, which are a 12-inch range pistol, D6, strength 3, AP 0, 1 damage. It's a plague weapon, and it automatically hits the target. So that's kind of cool. Your champion gets to take 2, by the way. You have to pay 5 points, but pretty handy. And then they are also equipped with the Man Reaper. So again, like the Lord of Contagion, they have the Cleave and Scythe ability. I won't bother reiterating them because I literally just said them. And also, they get to add 3 inches to their Contagion range of all Contagion abilities to a maximum of 12, which is pretty cool. They're still, the reason I quite like them is because they've kept hold of their 4-up invulnerable save after quite a lot of stuff got their invulnerable save reduced. And the way they've got around that, because they used to have cataphracti armor, and I believe that got changed. Anyway,
it has been changed in Space Marines. Yeah, it's now just become Relic Terminator armor.
Mm-hmm. So now it's diseased Terminator armor. which is models in this unit have a 4-up invuln save. But also, they've kept hold of their bodyguard aura, which is, while a very friendly play company character unit has a wounds characteristic of 9 or less, is within 3 inches of this unit, enemy models cannot target that character unit with ranged attacks. Which is quite nice.
Incredible.
Yeah. Super cool. So it's kind of a tweak on their old bodyguard ability, but I just like the idea of having 5 of them deep striking 21 attacks, giving minus toughness to stuff that you probably wouldn't have charged before. You can literally throw them into anything now. Throw them into tanks.
Oh, yeah.
Throw them into titans. Throw them into warhounds. Throw them into whatever. You're going to delete it.
If you charge them into a toughness 7 tank, they are wounding it on 3 rerolling ones.
Yeah. Which is...
assuming you're using the cleave profile, which you're going to be.
Yeah. Which is nothing to be shy about.
I mean, they're spectacular, right? I mean, 21 attacks for a 5-man unit is incredibly strong. The durability is utterly... it's hard to imagine of something as durable as these guys. And the fact that they are then comboing so perfectly with a Lord of Contagion... or any other character for that matter with the bodyguard function. I mean, sure, they could have better ranged attacks, but I think that would just be ridiculous at that point. I just think, they're super strong.
They are
super strong.
They are super strong. The only problem is, like, once they're down, and they've done their job, that's kind of it. Like, if you get them stuck into something else, that's a bonus. So... if you're paying, I think, like 300, 250 points for them, 300 if you're a 6-man squad, you need to make sure you're getting your points back.
Yeah, I mean, they're 250 points for 5 guys.
Yeah.
So I guess you're predominantly going to be deep striking them down, all right? Like, have they got abilities to make the charge roll easier for them?
No.
So I guess you're sort of throwing the luck of the dice.
I think there's an argument to keep them on the battlefield, though. I think,
just to soak up firepower.
Oh, yeah, because, I mean, it's just that thing with them, right? They're going to draw a lot of attention. You give them -1 to hit. You give them the +1 toughness to make them toughness 6. This is obviously the unit that you keep the Plague Surgeon near as well to give them the 6-up shrug, because if you're going to take one, you're going to put it near these guys. Then you put your HQ stuff behind it. It just becomes a real looming threat that you've got to kind of address at some point. And you're probably not going to be able to deal with them through ranged attacks alone. And it's going to take a long time, even with some serious firepower, to get them to go away. Equally, though, you could just roll poorly and they'll die immediately. But that's the nature of the game, right?
Yeah.
But, I think they're spectacular. I mean, they're one of the most improved units and certainly one of the most interesting ones. I think, again, obviously, as we've alluded to multiple times, them and their Blightlord Terminator counterparts are such massive winners in this book. It's unbelievable. I think, again, one of the things that long-time listeners of the show will have remarked upon or would, have heard us remark upon is the fact that, I personally am a massive fan of the Terminator. I think it's one of the most iconic aspects of the 40k game. And I'm really grateful that, we're going to start to see more Terminators. Maybe I'll regret those words after a while, but
when you're on the receiving end.
I know, right? I know. But it's awesome to imagine that Terminators are good again, even if they are specifically Plague Marine Terminators.
Because as Tim mentioned, the Relic Terminator Space Marine ones, I guess, had a 4-up, but now when they're Relic, they're 5 up. Yeah.
Is what it is. I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is, right? You can't be too bitter about it. It's not like Space Marines didn't get lots of other advantages, but yeah, it is what it is. Awesome. All right, guys. So let's get some closing statements on this before we move on. Let's start with you, Phil. What did you think of our little, exploration through the wondrous world of Death Guard?
I enjoyed it. I felt like we still didn't talk about Mortarion enough.
Well, we didn't talk about him nearly at all. Do you want to talk about Mortarion? For God's sakes, do you want to talk about
I think people listening to this are going to be disappointed if we don't talk
for God's
about
sakes, you want to talk about Mortarion?
Go on. Right. I think we need to explain why he's so good.
All right.
If he really is that good.
All right.
And why?
Let's address the Primarch in the room. So, he is movement 12, weapon skill 2, ballistic skill 2, strength 8, which is very good, toughness 8, which is also
which
very
went up
good.
by 1.
He's got...
It went up by 1. His toughness.
It did go up by 1, yes. He's got 18 wounds, 7 attacks, a leadership of 10, and a 3+ save. He is armed with the lantern. Please remember that his profile does diminish as he loses wounds, but I'm not going to go through all of that because that's crazy. But his movement and his attacks decrease as he gets weaker. The lantern, which is a pistol with range 12, strength 8, -3, flat 3 damage. Each time an attack is made with this weapon, if it scores a hit, draw a straight line between the closest point of this model's base or hull. I mean, I love the fact that they have to put or hull in there as if they don't know what Mortarian's got, but I guess maybe somehow the lantern can end up on a hull.
Is it talking about... Oh, no, yeah. Because it says that of the closest model in the target unit, so it's not the model that it's hit?
No, it says basically closest point on this model's base. Oh, hang on. Maybe it is talking about the model that you've hit as opposed to the model that's firing. Anyway, the point is that make 1 wound roll against the target unit and each other unit that the line passes over. So basically, he shoots the lantern and anything that's in the way of it gets shot also. It's pretty good, isn't it?
It's pretty good.
Especially at strength 8 -3 flat 3 damage.
Yeah, it's insane.
That's pretty strong.
It's pretty good.
He's got the attendant's claw and teeth, so all across Mortarion are little cherubs, little geezers, little gits that get involved, and they've got range melee, strength 2, 1 damage, but they're plague weapons, and each time the bearer fights, it makes d6 additional attacks with this weapon. So all his little gribblies start getting up in your business. It's also got silence, which is his big scary scythe. It comes with 2 different attack profiles. In its eviscerating blow form, it's strength 16, because strength times 2, -4, d3 +3 damage, and it's a plague weapon. So that's hitting on 2s, wounding pretty much everything on 2s, given the fact that they're always -1 toughness around him. So even if the thing he's charged is toughness 9, it's actually toughness 8. So he's always wounding on 2s, and he's rerolling 1s to wound. Wow. Or he's using his Reaping Scythe variant. And when doing so, each time an attack is made with this weapon, make 3 hit rolls instead of 1. So when you've got 7 attacks, that's a whopping 21 attacks. 21 attacks at strength 8 -2, 1 damage.
That is mad.
Pure
madness. That's utterly crazy.
Attacks, geez.
Yeah, I mean, just mad. And then he's got a Phosphex bomb, which is range 6, grenade 2d6, strength 5 -1, and it's blast with 1 damage.
Even that's really good. 2d6.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's a Primarch.
And it's blast, man. Cool. So he throws that into a unit of 11 dudes, and that's 12 hits.
Yeah.
Weapons alone, he's a scary boy. But that's not all. Oh, no. He's disgustingly resilient. He's also got Contagion of Nurgle. He's got the Primarch of the Death Guard. In your command phase, select 1 friendly Death Guard or core or Death Guard character unit within 6 of this model until the start of your next command phase. Each time a model in that unit makes an attack, you can reroll the hit roll. So you can basically go, cool, you're rerolling hits like a Chapter Master. He's also got Lord of the Death Guard. It's an aura. While friendly Death Guard units are within 6 of this model, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, it can reroll 1s. So he can give reroll 1s to other units as well.
Core units.
He's a Demon Primarch. So if your army is Battleforged, this model must be your Warlord. If more than one model in your army has the rule to this effect, then one of those models must be your army's Warlord. So he has to be your army Warlord unless there is another thing that has to be an army Warlord, in which case you get to choose between
what do you think would
things
trump him for being Warlord?
Well, I guess it's if you were taking multiple Demon Primarchs, right?
True.
So I guess...
Like him and Magnus.
Yeah, well, Magnus and Mortarian's, double act is quite a famous army build for many people, and potentially only going to become more famous as this goes on, because this guy's mad. He's got the Barbarian Plate, which is a 4+ invulnerable safe. When I read Barbarian Plate, I wanted to call it the Barbera Plate, referencing the Royal Family show. Does anyone remember the Royal Family?
Yeah, I do. Of course.
What about that Barbera? Hello, Barbera.
Hello, Barbera.
Hello, Barbera. That was Dave's dad, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I flipping love that show. He's the host of Plagues. So at the start of the first battle round, select one of the following warlord traits. Shamblerate, Ferric Blight, Glooming Bloat, Eater Plague, Sanguinous Flux, the Droning, Nurgle's Fruit. You cannot select a warlord trait that another model in your army already has. Until the end of the battle, this model gains the selected warlord trait in addition to any others it has, even if it's not your warlord. So he's got 4 warlord traits. 4!
You got to remember all these rules.
I mean, you are always going to forget them, aren't you? Putrid Explosion. If he dies on a 4+, he has a 6-inch D3 mortal wound thingy. And he's also got Toxic Presence, which means he's always counted as having the most amount of contagion, because he always counts as 4. And if that wasn't enough, Phil, he's also a Psyker. This model can attempt to manifest 2 psychic powers and can attempt to deny 3 psychic powers. He can deny 3!
Tasty.
And he cancels auras.
And he cancels auras, of course. He is bonkers.
He's amazing.
He is bonkers.
Yeah, because I think the not only is he good, but the build that everyone is saying is you take the warlord trait, which gives him for old school feel no pain. The old school.
Well, he gets that standard,
resilient. So you not only get -1 damage, but you also get 5+ feel no pain.
Yeah, that's what he comes with by default, though. Phil.
Oh, does he? So he gets what that? Oh no, I thought he had to choose it as a warlord.
No,
trait.
It's default.
Okay.
So he has 3 default warlord traits, which are... where are they now? There they are, warlord traits. So he gets Revoltingly Resilient, Living Plague, and Arc Contaminator. And then he can take 1 warlord trait in addition to this. So Host of Plagues, at the start of the first battle round, select one of the following warlord traits. And these are the warlord traits that you will find listed in the different in the 7 plague companies, basically. So he gets one of the different plague company ones. So he can have while the enemy unit is within contagion range at the start of your opponent's movement phase, roll d6. So he can do the 4+ doing d3 mortal wounds stuff. He could while an enemy unit is within contagion range of this unit, each time an attack made by the friendly inexorable model unit improve the armor penetration characteristics by 1.
The next
the assertion being that you're going to choose the warlord trait that goes with the plague company that the rest of your army has, basically. But it's not stipulated.
Hang on. Or you can take Mortarian's Anvil, which is Glooming Bloat, which is while an enemy unit is within contagion range of this unit, so 9, that enemy unit cannot fire Overwatch or set to a defend. Each time a model in the enemy unit makes an attack, the hit roll and wound roll cannot be re-rolled.
You're going to take that every day, right? I mean, you're just going to go Mortarian's Anvil.
Yeah. Done.
But then do you need to do that if you can already switch off the other person's aura abilities? Doesn't he have something that can do
Well, the aura ability is only within 3, so the contagion range
whereas
is
this
9.
is 9. Okay.
But also you don't get Overwatched, which could be problematic sometimes, but almost never for Mortarion. The massive downside of Mortarion is he's only got a 3+ armor save.
Yeah.
So a lot of AP -1 guns will get it done.
Yeah, it sort of feels like, even though I think statistically it's going to take a lot, it's probably the best way to do it, because you, like I said, you're ignoring his invuln, you're making the most out of his 3+ save, and you're ignoring the -1 damage. So it's like, that's probably the best way to go about it, I would have thought.
How many assault cannons can you get in an army?
Yeah. If you see him on
That's basically what it is.
If you see him on the tabletop, your choice is either to ignore him or take him, or try and take him down.
Thing is, you can't ignore him anymore, because the thing is, before is you ignored him because his output wasn't that terrifying, whereas now it's just like
horrific. Yeah.
Well, I think you still potentially just need to ignore him and try and score before he does too much damage, but I don't know, it might be hard.
But here's the thing, mate. We're playing on 60 by 44-inch boards now. Try ignoring that.
I know. In fact, he's got a 12-inch move as well. It's
impossible to ignore him. Maybe when we were playing 6x4, you could work around it, but unfortunately, Mortarion the boost to Mortarion is amplified by the overarching nature of the game. The game has made Mortarion ridiculous.
Yeah.
The fact he's a quarter of your army is fair enough, but like that's not that expensive.
How many points
versus
is he?
what you get. 490.
Yeah, I mean, how does he compare to like the big knights? Similar points?
Well, he's way less points than a Castellan.
Oh, really?
Castellan's like nearly 800 points.
Wow.
It's like 720 maybe for a Castellan.
Surely you'd be taking Mortarion any day, given the choice between two.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, God,
I mean, his
you want to
weapons
go ultra
aren't
hilarious,
like,
dude.
His weapons aren't, he can't take out a tank from long range. Like, he's got no big guns on him.
Well, why not? Here's a fun plan for an army list: Mortarion, a battalion of some Death Guard, and a Castellan. Done.
Could
Yeah,
you
why
fit
not?
that in 2,000 points?
Huh?
What
was that, Tim?
Can you fit that in 2,000 points? I'm just thinking, if you're thinking max squad of Plague Marines.
Well, I take some Plague Marines. I mean, I don't know.
Right.
You take like 4 squads of Plague Marines, and then, or 3 squads of Plague Marines, a couple sorcerers, or a lord, or just take a patrol. Who cares?
I mean, if
Take a
you're
patrol.
doing it properly, you do 7 squads of 7. You've got to think about these things.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're doing it properly, although no one's really going to do that.
No, I know people that have done that.
But could you imagine that as an army list, though? Here's Mortarion, here's a Castellan,
Have fun.
sorted out.
You would not be.
Mortarion's running at you.
You would not.
The Castellan's blowing you up.
You would.
And then there's some Plague Marines running around going, "Woo, got an objective."
You're not
You
going
would
to be
not be
getting that
winning
Knight of the
favourite
Inner
game
Circle
Yeah.
award anytime soon, are you?
Well, I don't need to worry about it anymore, mate. It's in the
You're
bank.
too busy winning.
It's in the bank.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I the old me achieved a Knight of the Inner Circle award. Now I just focus on, stomping people.
Yeah,
Making
I mean,
kids cry.
how do we feel about him? Is he egregiously is he too good? For
I think
who
he
is
borders on too good.
and for
Yeah.
what his points are.
I think when you consider that, to the best of my understanding, I think Guilliman is 350 points still. And Guilliman is amazing, but he ain't no Mortarion now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mortarion's benefits is he's so hard to get rid of, and he is just a monster now. The fact that he can run into horde units and slap them about, the fact that he can walk up to any tank and smash it to bits. It's like, I don't know what Mortarion struggles against. Like, I can't think of something that deals with him comfortably. Like, what would I put in an army to deal with Mortarion? Because the thing is like, you could make the argument of, oh, I'll take this, and then that will potentially outrange him. But the problem is with the way the game is you want to be in the mid-table because that's where all the objectives are. If you're not holding objectives, you're not winning. And that's where Mortarion's just floating around going, cool, try and take this objective.
Yeah,
I'm just going to have
I think, was it Mikey from Hellstorm Wargaming did a bit of a maths hammer and rolled some dice using 9 eradicators. And I think even after 2 turns, he couldn't kill him.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the idea that big monsters, big Lord of Wars, like, Shadow Swords, like anything that's sort of got the Titanic keyword, should last for the majority of the game. It shouldn't be shot off the table 1 turn, even if your entire army's shooting at it. And even, that shouldn't ever really be the case based on the table layout and the terrain. So the fact that he can survive to turn 3 or 4 before he dies, it should be a good thing, but around turn 3 or 4 or by turn 5 you should be able to kill him with a bit of luck and stuff.
For the sake of context, I think Games Workshop got it about right with Gazcol. Gazcol is the right level of survivable and the right level of powerful. Like, Gazcol feels strong, extraordinarily strong, but you kind of respect that Gaz has some sort of negative, whereas Mortarion just really doesn't. Now, obviously, Gaz is not as expensive as Mortarion, but, like, it's just 18 wounds, mate. 18 wounds. even if you shot him with, again, like, I don't know, like 6 melter guns, like 3 Eradicators shooting twice, you're going to hit, mathematically speaking, 4 out of 6 shots. You're going to wound 2 out of those. He's going to save 1 of them, and the one that you're going to do is going to do, like, let's say 5 damage. Well, that actually becomes 4 damage, of which you're then going to prevent maybe 2 of it. So, 6 melter gun shots is going to result in 2 wounds, maybe. It's like that's where it starts to go a bit mad. Now, obviously, I appreciate Math's hammer isn't everything, but he's tough, mate. He's a tough cookie.
He is super tough.
Yeah, it's weird because when Gaz came about, they did the whole you can only take a certain amount of max damage per phase, and I thought that was a mechanic they would bring in for these big models. So it's odd that they haven't done it for him, and instead they've kind of just given him his kind of classic stuff like disgusting resilience, and just lots of wounds. So yeah, it's interesting. Maybe with Gaz that was just a unique thing they were going to do for him and not for all the big guys. But that was like a nice, easy way of capping off, one-shotting a big model turn 1. But it does penalise people that can't do damage in lots of different phases. So if you can, if you're only a shooting army and you're doing 3 wounds a turn, it's like you're not going to kill him.
Yeah.
So,
that's the thing. You're never going to kill him quickly enough to stop him getting into your ranks. And once he's in your ranks, all of his different abilities are triggering. Everything is happening. He becomes unstoppable. And the thing is, you've got nowhere to run to because the board size is too small now.
I think I did see somewhere.
So you're just going to find yourself stuck with him. And again, it's one of those things. Like, it's cool that he feels like the thing that he's supposed to be. He's a demon Primarch. It's really cool that he's what he's supposed to be. But as Tim said, I think he's getting at least a points increase. At least.
There's going to be a nerf at some point. It's the way it happens with every sort of book that comes out. It's like it's a new hotness. It will do really, really well, and then it'll get nerfed. It's just more so in this case with Morty because he is such a beat stick. Like, he's only a quarter of your army, which in the grand scheme of things may sound a lot, but it's not. It's not for what he does.
He should at least be 600 points at least.
Yeah, he's like, it's like comparison. Death Shroud, that's 300 points for 6 models, and he does way more than them. So you could just not take Death Shroud and just take Morty. There you go.
Although you're going to take Death Shrouds because you can't shoot Mortarion while Death Shrouds are near him.
Not that as well.
Which is bonkers. Like the fact that he benefits from the bodyguard stuff.
Does he benefit from the bodyguard stuff? Because the bodyguard stuff.
I thought he did. Maybe he does.
He doesn't anymore because it's 9 wounds or less. So.
Oh, okay. Okay, fine. So he doesn't. At least he doesn't get protected by them. At least
isn't there that? Isn't still there that stratagem like was it Plague of Flies where you can't shoot anything?
It's psychic power.
Yeah. It's psychic power where you can't shoot anything but that one nominated unit.
Or maybe it was a stratagem. Either way, it was a thing you could do. Yeah. I don't know if that's still a thing. Is that still a thing, Tim?
There is a stratagem kicking about that will do that. I'm just trying to find it now, in fact, because I saw that the other day.
It's just a scary problem that you need to work out and you need to solve. And I think the problem is with him is what I don't like about him from a design perspective is that he's so easy he's so easy to play. That it just annoys me slightly. I gotta be honest, it annoys me slightly with units like this because I don't like brainless units. It's obvious how I use him. It's obvious how I win with him, and he's so efficient at it. I don't ever really need to worry about it. So it's like cool. If my opponent is able to deal with him, it'll probably take that opponent 2-3 turns to get rid of him. And that's going to require a huge amount of aggression on the part of my opponent, at which point I've won, because while you're dealing with that problem, I've soaked up everything else around me. And at that point, it's like, cool, well, whatever. And again, like I was saying, when you start doubling it up with some of the other mad, overpowered stuff in the game, like a Castellan, what does your opponent... How do you pick a priority between a Castellan and him? It's just like, I mean, at the GT finals of 8th edition this time last year, oddly, I was playing against a guy who ran a Chaos Knight army that was 4 Chaos Knights and Mortarion, and it was really tough to deal with, but manageable because Mortarion wasn't today's Mortarion.
I'll tell you what, I played that same guy, and he conceded at the end of turn 2. But then that's because I ignored Mortarion and just went for the knights that were going to be the issues. And obviously,
but you were playing on a 6x4 board, so you had space.
I had a shadow sword, which I think was the thing that swung it, because I was just one-shotting a knight every turn. Pretty much. I had a lot of tanks as well, but yeah, I think in fact, I think one of the statistically best units for dealing with Mortarion would be shadow sword, just because it will do a ton of damage. And it's like, cool, each one is -1 damage, but my damage roll is like 2d6. So -1 to a 7 or an 8 doesn't make much difference. So you can help nullify.
Just don't roll that double 1, eh?
Well, yeah, God, I mean, that happens.
It does happen. Well, look, guys, that'll do for that, right? We were going to do a little wrap-up, but we ended up just rambling about Mortarion. The general consensus is Death Guard are good. They fit the meta well. I'm not sure what the solution is in terms of how you go up against them and how you try and defeat them. Maybe in the future we'll do some theory crafting and start to come up with ideas about how you deal with this stuff. But I think a lot of the issues that we might be seeing with these guys in the short term might be addressed with some FAQs and erratas that may come between now and our, first tournaments of 2021. And even if that isn't the case, I'm sure other stuff will have come along to potentially present their own issues. So we'll see what happens. But in closing, Death Guard seemed great. Tim, thank you so much for joining us. What a pleasure it is to have you with us again. Did you enjoy it, Tim?
Oh, it was great. Thanks for having me back. I always enjoy.
You'll come back and do it again sometime, right?
Totally. I'll totally do it again.
I don't know what we'll get you on for next. I mean, what when that NID book drops, I guess.
Yes. Well, if that NID book.
Or when Crawford Elder come out, we could talk about those.
Yeah. I know a little bit about them. Or we could talk about Krieg again.
We do that every episode.
I mean, it has at least been 2 episodes without doing Krieg, so we probably are due another Krieg episode, right, Phil?
Oh, for sure, yeah. Once a month, contractually.
That is part of that's Phil's rider. There you go. Although bizarrely, do not mention a shovel meme. He gets very sensitive around the shovel memes.
Or gas masks.
Yeah, or just put a gas mask on a thing. Definitely don't get into a habit of sending Phil just pictures of stuff with gas masks.
Please don't.
Please keep them away. They haunt him. But there you go, guys. That was us talking about Death Guard. We're going to move on now to whatever is coming next. Truth be told, we were hoping to turn this into a 2-segment episode where we were going to talk about the reveals.
We will.
We're probably now just going to wrap that up.
Of course we will. We will. We'll do it.
Are we going to do it?
We've got time.
Hey, what are you talking about? We've been recording for like 3 hours already.
He's a madman.
People like long episodes.
Mate, we can't put out a weekly episode that's 4 hours long, you lunatic. We're going to do this. We're going to do this, aren't we?
I mean, we can just do transitional noise and then we'll talk about it afterwards.
All right, transitional noise. Woo! And that's it, everyone. More or less the end of the show, except for this bit where we end up talking for another 20, 30 minutes. Let's see how it goes. The Warhammer 40,000 previews happened, Phil. Oh, my God.
Woo!
Unbelievable. So, the first one of the year, 2021, which I'm still not used to saying. How are you getting on with 2021, Phil? It doesn't make sense, does it?
I know. It's a crazy, crazy world we live in.
Well, exactly. It takes me at least till mid-February to get comfortable with what, year it is.
I know. Weren't we meant to be like jetpacks in 2021, like living in the far future? I mean, it is a dystopian future we have got on there, but I wanted the jetpacks, really.
We were promised jetpacks. Wasn't that the name of a band?
I believe so, yeah.
Possibly. I imagine, traversal around the world via jetpacks would be an incredibly perilous way to get around, wouldn't you imagine?
Of course, yeah.
I imagine the initial kind of propulsion of getting off the ground on one of those things would probably shatter your skeleton, wouldn't it?
Well, I think people have like myth busted the whole concept of the superhero drop, where you'll just be shattering your knees on impact. So you definitely can't be doing that with your jetpacks.
You don't want to be getting involved with that noise. But, people that aren't limited by, pesky old reality are the good fictional characters that occupy the world of Warhammer 40,000. And we got some new Warhammer 40,000 characters aided by machinery in the form of these fabulous new Palatine sisters.
No, they're the Paragon Warsuits.
Are they Paragon Warsuits? Sorry, I thought it was
Well, they have said they've said we've already unveiled the Palatine model. Which was, I think it was a character.
So yes, so now it's the Paragon Warsuit. So, couple interesting questions that I'm still curious about on this. So, as a model, I think it's pretty spectacular. I think it's fair to assert that that the Warsuit itself is pretty. I mean, Phil, what's your vibe in terms of the model itself?
Yeah, I think my initial outtake was, wow, this is something really cool. It's very different. I sort of like it. And then after a bit more interrogation, I was like, it seems like it's filling a role that already exists within the Sisters army. It's like it's a close combat walker, and it's like you've already got the Penitent engine. So it sort of feels like it's doing that role, but one that's more specific to the actual Sisters rather than the Sisters as a wider faction. So I guess they're like their version of either like Centurions or Aggressors that are a bit more like beefed up. I like the concept.
I feel like
I think
more likely to fulfill that kind of war walker function. I think these are. I get the opinion that these are going to be tiny dreadnoughts. I think we're looking at a vehicle unit.
No, I wouldn't. I don't think. What? How
They
many
are
rooms do you
vehicle-esque.
think they're? I mean, they're sort of big. I don't know. It's hard to say.
So
like
if I was going to take a
Centurions are
stab,
infantry, I would say that these would be infantry as well.
See, I don't think so, man. I think these guys are going to... I get the vibe, because again, they are very mechanical. So I do get the impression that we're looking at a vehicle. I also get the impression that they're going to be relatively durable. I don't think we're going to get them with more than 6 wounds. I think there'll probably be 4 to 6 wounds. I don't know where that's going to land, but I think minimum would be 4. And you're going to probably be talking 3+ armor save, toughness 5, maybe toughness 6.
Yeah,
but
I mean, they
more
might
likely
have Sentinel stats, but even then, that feels quite optimistic.
I think the thing is, though, if these are vehicles, that is madness, because obviously there's a thing that vehicles do, and that is shoot in combat. So the idea that you could have a unit that is armed to the teeth with heavy weapons and a massive great power sword that can chuck itself into combat, wade through people, and then if it doesn't actually end up killing everything, stick around and then start shooting people.
I get the impression from the video that they're going to come in squads of probably like 3. But also,
there's no reason why you can't have vehicle squadrons, though.
No, that's true. Well, the same with Sentinels, they come in squads, so it is possible. But they also sort of teased the concept in the artwork of the video that there might be a character version as well, which would seem to make sense if they're going to do like a unit plus a character. Which would be really exciting, I think, if they did that. And I like the fact that you get different weapon options. It seems like this one's got storm bolters like up on the top, plus the sword, plus the heavy melter. Yeah, it's interesting. I like them as a concept. I sort of feel like they're a bit weird as a concept as well, but I do like them.
I think for me, it's like, it's really interesting that they're taking Sisters in this direction, because I think it's not something anyone expected to see from the Sisters range, and
No,
I think
that's the best thing about it, is that they've given us something completely new. No one was really expecting new Sisters units, because the range should just come out. I think they're doing what they did with Gene Stealer Cult, and there's going to be like a second wave of releases. And now that they've kind of updated the majority of the old range, with the exception of 1 or 2 units like Crusaders, for example, that they're just going to go, here's a bunch of new stuff that you didn't even think about. I think that's good.
Which is super exciting. I think, again, it shows a really good future prospect for, the sisters. And I think, again, it's just a good news story for a lot of players, because it shows a statement of intent of what we're going to see for a lot of armies going forwards. I mean, it got me really excited about the prospect of maybe what could be around the corner for Harlequins, for example, because Harlequins feel like they're long overdue their second wave since their initial 7th.
Yeah, they've got a very sort of tiny army range, probably the smallest out of all of them.
Easily one of the smallest. I mean, technically, you could say that the Rogue Traders and the Galabac pox
Galapox,
I mean, bar those weird little one-offs, I'd say the Harlequins are definitely one of the smallest ranges that is an official army.
Yeah, like one that's got a Codex, like a proper one. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, Custodes used to be about the same size as the Quins, but then obviously they got their recent book, and then I say recent book, their book from like 2-3 years ago now, which expanded their range massively. And then
they also always had the Forge World stuff.
So they've become quite a huge range, whereas Harlequins is one troop choice, handful of elite choices, one transport, one heavy support, couple characters. It's like, it's small. So, and jet bikes. But so I really hope that we see some additives to the Quins pretty soon. But regardless of that, I think, I like it. I think the rules for it are obviously going to be strong. I think as a model, it's really nice. And again, it just sparks my imagination. It shows the prospect of what's to come. I think.
Have you seen all the people complain about the legs? And they think it looks odd. Yeah, and it's like, how does it work? Are they paraplegic, or are they an injured person who doesn't have legs, or are they just doing a very wide stance? Because I think the way it works is their leg goes into the top thigh, and their foot ends up sort of where the knee is of the robot leg.
Well, I think. I think that's the thing, isn't it? Right? Because again, if you look at the kind of proportions, I guess her torso, given where her head is, her torso will probably occupy a chunk of the middle section. So maybe like her legs are actually higher up than they appear. I mean, again, who cares?
I think it's one of those things where you can't really tell from the angle of the photo very much, and it'd be interesting to see how it looks. 360, being able to actually look at the final model.
With all due respect, it's a super powered nun wielding an exoskeleton covered in sci-fi mumbo jumbo. It's like, who cares? Who really cares about the legs?
No,
it's
I know.
cool, right?
It's like a bit like the old style Terminators, where their head is embedded into their chest. If you were to try and look at it kind of anatomically correct. So I think they've gotten a lot better at that proportion wise. So I don't think they would have got this wrong in that respect. But also, it is sci-fi. You've got to give it a bit of a leeway for some stuff.
Exactly.
It is though that they have got. So one thing I found quite funny is, like, if you look at the Imperium range of walkers, you've got Grey Knights with the, what's it called? Their knights that they've got. You
mean the Dread Knights?
Yeah, sorry, the Dread Knights. That's it. So you got them with the Marine on the outside, fully exposed. You've got this where the lady is her head's exposed and her arms are slightly exposed. You've got the Invictus Warsuits, where they're sort of fully exposed as well. Is there any other walkers? I think that's sort of predominantly it for
walkers for the Elder.
Yeah, I guess they're slightly exposed. But then you think about the orcs, the crazy orcs and their killer cans, fully enclosed. Like, who would have thought orcs would be the sensible ones to design their vehicle walkers where their crew is completely safe and sealed inside, whereas the humans are the ones that are like, nah, you can just be on the outside, it doesn't matter, it's fine.
I guess it's just to do with, I mean, again, it's a design
It's
over
a visual
functionality.
aesthetic. I get it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, at the end of the day, if they had just given us a robot sentinel without the sister clearly exposed, what would you have done to make this thing look like a sister?
Yeah.
And at this moment in time, we don't know if there are, fully sealed, like, sarcophagus-style versions of these as well.
There might be variants, yeah. What I like about it is they're kind of acknowledging that there does need to be potentially every army needs a decent sort of durable close combat unit. And it's like, yeah, they've got the Repentia, but they're not durable. They're like numerous and they've got a lot of attacks. But this is like a tough, like I said, it's a bit of an aggressor/Centurion style squad. And it's like, I just sort of want them to do something similar for the Guard. It's like, yes, you've got Ogrins, but it's not quite the same.
They might get around to it, right? I mean, but then you guys have got the Sentinels, right? I mean, those do exist. It's just a question of
they're
whether
sort of shooty,
those.
But they're not very good in close combat.
You can get close combat Sentinels.
It does a chainsaw that does like one attack or something. It's rubbish. Like,
well, they might just adjust the rules to make it less.
I mean, maybe, yeah, that would be nice. I think that's the thing. I think they do need to address a lot of armies don't really have good close combat capabilities, but the game is so focused on close combat. So the fact that these guys have got like a nice, tough, durable unit makes me feel.
I just think the thing is with the game is one of the elements of the game that so many armies have missed out on in recent years is the mid-tier unit. It's like the mid-tier units have just not gotten a lot of focus. I mean, you look at Drakari, they've got the Talos, and the Talos is a mid-tier unit, and it is strong and it is viable. They've also got the Grotesques, which are kind of in that bigger profile. The Space Marines have got the Terminators and the Centurions and the Gravis armors and all the rest of it. And then the Elder have got various, flyers and skimmers and things of that nature. The Necrons have now got the Destroyer stuff, the Destroyer cult that adds that element to it as well. Guard have got Sentinels and Ogrins and things, but these aren't necessarily, even though I could just rattle off a bunch of different names of things, they're not as numerous as they should be, and they're also one of the most creatively interesting aspects of the game because, something that resides between the ultra elite HQ, ultra heavy stuff, and something that then resides within the little foot troopers is where you can have a lot of creative flair, and I think that's what we see here with these. It's again them flexing their creative might and coming up with something really interesting for the sisters, which is great. I think it's good, Phil.
Yeah, I agree. Should we move on to the next reveal, which was
scoundrels.
Kill Team Pariah Nexus, a update to Kill Team, or an expansion to be more correct, but it features the wanted Gravis intercessors. The heavy intercessor is finally here. It's upon us. We've waited a long old time, plus a Gravis captain, plus some Necron stuff, which has
I mean, let's not be unfair to the Necron stuff though. Those flailed ones are gorgeous.
Yeah, so you get a Chronomancer, who's a lovely model. You get some flayed ones, which is also very cool and a much needed update for the flayed one models. You get 48 pieces of Necron terrain, which look whatever. They look just like Necron crates, I guess. A bit underwhelming in that respect. And you get some nice gaming
potential
boards.
For if you're building your own custom terrain. I think as scatter pieces they can add some really interesting flavour to a world. So give a hint of a tomb world, like maybe if you had like a crater that was dug in, and maybe you use some of these green columns and sort of had them emerging in the crater to show that beneath the surface is a tomb world or something. You could do some interesting stuff.
I think so. I think on its own, they're not to the same level of the terrain bits that we've got in other Kill Teams. Obviously, I think this is a much smaller expansion. It's mostly it's more akin to the Rogue Trader expansion, but a lot less interesting in terms of this is clearly like you want to buy this for 40k, not because you play Kill Team. I think it's a clever ploy by Games Workshop to get people to take another look at Kill Team. You sell this because
people are going to buy this because they're going to want the captain and they're going to want the heavy intercessors, right? Every 40k player or every Marine player is probably going to buy one copy of this because we're impatient and we want those heavy intercessor models. So we're going to buy at least one copy. Also, all of us have a Necron army now that none of us have probably actually taken that much attention to, but this is yet more stuff that you could add to your, your
they're
dusty
unwittingly
Necron collection.
making us all a Necron player.
Well, exactly, right? Because I am definitely going to buy this box set, right? There's no doubt. And I'm going to take the Necron stuff and I'm going to put it with the rest of the Necron stuff in a drawer. Of which I'm now amassed quite, I've amassed a fair amount of it because I bought one of those smaller Indomitus boxes for the Outriders when the Outriders weren't available separately.
Right, yeah.
And I've got some, and then I got the additional Indomitus, and now when I get this, I'll have that as well. So I've got enough stuff to make quite not a very competitive Necron army, but a Necron army all the same.
Yeah. I'm a bit gutted. I sold my Necron half of Forgebane because that one had a really cool, unique character in it, but also had some cool models like wraiths and stuff in it as well as immortals. So yeah, I would have had quite a collection if I didn't get rid of those.
You would have done. But the point is, it's heavy intercessors, right? And again, people want it, but in doing so, they also get a game that maybe they can explore because Kill Team's a great game. It's a really great game.
Oh yeah, for sure. I actually really enjoy it, like almost more so than 40k, just because the game style is so much more kind of relaxed. There's less high stakes. There's a lot more fun, and I think a lot more balanced. It's like, cool, you got Space Marines, I've got Necrons. We can have an equal game. Whereas if you were to do, 2,000 points Necrons versus Space Marines, you'd probably assume that the Space Marines have the advantage just because of the meta and the balance in the codexes. Whereas it seems that's less of an issue. With Kill Team. What is cool about it, well, what will be interesting is one, the price, because if you get such a decent saving out of it for buying the heavy intercessors and the Space Marine Captain, for example, might be worth just buying it just because it will be a decent bundle deal. But the other thing, and what we were talking about in relation to terrain last week, is you've got some cool inside boards, and these boards will be size-wise compatible with the other 40k Games Workshop boards. So you could actually go, let's do a, was it 44 by 60 game, but one of the boards is going to be inside this tomb complex, for example. So we got a dedicated outside bit and a dedicated inside bit, which could make for
you are only getting one board with this though, right?
Yeah, one double-sided one, but then you don't want it to take up the full, having one area of your gaming board set aside as this is inside, this is where one of the objectives are. That could be quite interesting.
Yeah, no, I think the one thing I will say for it is, unless the flayed ones are dramatically different in Kill Team to how they appear in 40k, there is no way you're winning with that Necron Kill Team.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Ever.
It feels like, there's going to be a bit of an imbalance in terms of power level between the flayed ones and the heavy intercessors. But, who knows what they're going to do. Maybe the Chronomancer is so much better, it makes up for it. Maybe it's not meant to be a completely balanced,
Maybe it's just a cynical way to get us to buy more stuff just to get the thing that we want.
That could be. I'm also glad they're just expanding the Pariah Nexus as a concept. Like, they've sort of talked about it, but haven't really ever shown it beyond. Yeah, there's the standalone kind of campaign book, but other than that, and that is specifically for Crusade. Like, they haven't really done more with it. So I'm glad that it's finally coming out as there's more stuff to do with the Pariah Nexus. I like them expanding on areas in different ways. So I think that's
cool. I'm on board with that. The other thing I like about it is it's obviously showing us that Kill Team's not dead. I think a lot of people just assumed it was a dead system now, but the fact that they're actually like, no, more Kill Team, here it is. Interestingly, as many people have observed, still has the old Warhammer 40,000 logo.
Yes, yeah, but I think that's because they're just going, we're keeping it the same system, we're not updating it at all, so it's staying as the same logo, so why not? So it sort of makes sense.
It does make sense, I suppose. The other thing that they announced that's somewhat related to 40k in the sense that it is of the same universe is obviously the Adeptus Titanicus, the 134-foot Titan, the War Master Titan, is for those times when even a warlord is not quite big enough. So this is a massive, massive, massive Titan that you can now field in your games of Adeptus Titanicus, commonly referred to as the best game that you'll never play, but maybe there is a desire to. When we were watching the live stream of this, I compared the Titan's many plasma guns wrapped together to the Megatron from Peep Show, which, if any of you have watched Peep Show, is a remote made of many remotes that Mark and Jez have taped together. So it's like a Sky remote and a TV remote and like another remote. And it was lovingly referred to as the Megatron, and they said that they needed to dismantle it in order to increase their pulling power. But regardless of that very specific show reference, I mean, this thing has got a lot of guns on it, hasn't it?
Yep. It's also pretty ugly.
You're not a fan?
No, I hate it. I'm not going to mince my words on that one. Yeah, I just don't like the design of it. So people have been banding around some concept artwork for the War Master from the olden days, and it sort of feels like it should have stayed as concept artwork. You know, sometimes they sort of re-churn out some stuff from the Rogue Trader era, like the Zote, and it looks really cool. And then other stuff like this, I just don't think it's very good. It's got some cool elements to it. Like, I like that there's guns on the knees and sort of in sort of AA guns in the carapace. It gives it a much bigger sense of scale and makes it seem much more bigger than the Warlord that doesn't have those things. And it kind of has elements of the Imperator Titan, which would obviously be even bigger than this. So I like that it's got some of those kind of cool elements. But yeah, just the overall kind of boxy build and the multiple... It's like the sort of like the groin armor that's all sort of slatted together, but then that covers its whole sort of chest area. But it sort of looks like it's just covering its like groin area. So just, I don't know, it just looks really weird. Like, I'm not a fan of it at all. Like the faceplate.
That's fair enough, mate. That's fair enough. I mean, for me, I don't dislike it as a miniature, but I do find the idea of it totally absurd. Like, I mean, it's got so many guns on it. Like, it's got missile launchers in its armpits, it's got missile launchers on its head, it's got like, I'm surprised its eyes aren't guns, like, it's one of those things where, like, it is loaded to the nines with guns, and obviously that's cool, but it is one of those things that starts to get a little bit absurd. And I think the thing is with the Titanicus range and Titanicus in the general sense is that, like, it's awesome that you get to bring these things to life in a game form, and that it's an interesting element of gameplay, I'm sure. But I do sort of feel like you end up in these situations where a lot of these have to end up, prioritizing function over form, and ultimately Games Workshop has to come up with a way of portraying these massive death-dealing war machines with even more weapons and even more stuff, and then we end up in this ridiculous situation where it's literally just, a question of, well, we need it to be incredible, so we need to throw more stuff at it, and it just sort of gets to a point where it's like, when is it too much, I suppose. But
yeah.
Look, I mean, it's great that they're still supporting this game. I do really aspire to play it sometime, but
one day.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really say much more about it than that because it's not technically a 40k thing, so not really something I want to linger on massively.
Did you not
equally...
love... Oh, go on.
No, please, carry on.
I was going to say, did you not love the new Ordo Hereticus Inquisitor that they previewed at the very bottom of the page?
Well, of course I did. We were going to get to that, Phil. I was just going to mainly say that the Cow Archer for Age of Sigmar is fine, but I've really had enough of these insane thematic bases where everyone needs to be on some crazy swirl when it comes to Age of Sigmar and elves. It was funny, Sean was stipulating when we were watching this together that they're using these crazy thematic bases to try and stop recasting, and I have a tendency to agree with him on that one.
Yeah, I heard someone else say that. to explain the swirls and stuff, and it's like, I get it. I don't know if that's really a design consideration that they sort of implement, or if it's just rule of cool, and it's like, it's a cool concept. He's sort of flying around. So I mean, who knows what other design decisions behind it. It looks pretty mad. It looks something that could easily, we've said it many times, is a display piece more than a gaming piece, and totally. Or at least it's a gaming piece to play at home and not necessarily put in a box unless you've got like a magnetic case or something.
Yeah. Equally, the Daughters of Cain stuff is nice. I like their endless spells. I mean, they look cool. But easily one of the coolest things in this announcement, or this process, was the new vampire gang for Warhammer Underworlds. I'm not a massive Underworlds player at this point, but this gang is pretty.
Yeah, I've played at least 2 versions of Warhammer Underworlds, the original one, and then I skipped the second one, and then I did a bit of Beastgrave. It's a bit tiresome. I mean, it's a lovely game in isolation, but the kind of card collecting mechanic of buying all the war bands, even though you don't need to do that, but you're sort of encouraged to do that, is what sort of puts me off the game, because the churn rate of the game is so quick. It's like every year they do a brand new box set where they invalidate technically a bunch of older cards to encourage you to buy the new ones. And it's like, I barely got to, I played a couple of weekends of gaming with Beastgrave after I bought it, and then this one's already out. So it's like, I'll be buying the ones I want for the models. I don't really care too much about playing the game again. Or if I do, it's like, I've already got Beastgrave. I've already got, the very original Warhammer Underworlds game. I'll use those warbands. I'll use those cards, even though they're technically, from a kind of competitive, like matched play version. So a lot of those cards have been sort of rolled out of the game, but in a kind of more casual setting, like no one cares. Like you can just play with whatever cards you want. So that's probably how I will be doing it. And if someone's got the new Darkchasm rules, then great, we'll use them. But I won't be going out and buying that box set.
I might just be buying it because I think the models are pretty.
Oh yeah, like
than that.
I'll probably be getting this one for the vampires, even though I've just converted up my own vampire for Mordheim. It's like these ones are pretty damn awesome as well, so I love them. I think there'd be some really cool, awesome conversion potential.
Oh, they look great, man. They've done a great job with them. And on the topic of them doing great jobs, the 2 miniatures that they unveiled from their Warhammer Quest Cursed City box set, or game system that they announced, are stunning. I mean, obviously, as you've already said, Phil, an incredible, Adeptus Hereticus, or not Adeptus
Ordo
Hereticus, whatever it is.
Yeah,
Ordo Hereticus, that's it. Inquisitor. I mean, he's got a very large belt buckle, or very large belts in the general sense. I mean, those are some big old belts. But bar, the girth of his belts, I mean, it's just gorgeous. It's an incredible model. And the Gravedigger guy, wow.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's
such an incredible, like, Pan's Labyrinth vibe, just incredible.
I can't wait to see what else they're doing with this range. It's like, yeah, it just looks so good. Like, I'm excited for it. I want to see what the game's going to be like, even though it's like, I didn't get the last... I didn't get Silver Tower, I didn't get Hammerhole, Shadows of Hammerhole, and I didn't get Blackstone Fortress, although I've really got Blackstone Fortress off of Joe. Not that we should be talking about him anymore. But yeah, so it's like, as much as I love the classic OG Warhammer Quest, I've never really got back into these revamps. But this one might be the one where I go, actually, I'm going to buy these and play the game. Or at the very least, I'm going to buy it just to completely kit bash all the models for 40k.
Yeah, I just think it's it's going to be a brainless purchase, right? It's going to be so cool. I'm very impressed with what I've seen so far, and I love the Warhammer Quest system. I think it's just such a fun game. So yeah, if they do this and they do it well, which it's clear they are going to do, then I think it's an exciting way to kick off the year, right? I mean, as Warhammer updates go, it wasn't necessarily the most abundant. I think there was a lot of hope and expectations that we might have seen something a bit more substantial. I know you and I had our speculations around certain things that we thought might be coming, might not be coming. Regardless of that, though, I think it was a strong update overall. And I think Games Workshop have really found their feet and their rhythm with this now. It doesn't feel too bloated as a presentation. And also, I like the fact that it has actually become a really nice opportunity for us to get together on the weekends when they happen and have a nice sort of social event around it. Like, it's really fun catching up with you guys in a chat and going through this and just seeing the reveals as they happen and getting really excited. Little pet peeve, and I'll throw it out there as a minor complaint. They've stopped doing the one more thing, as it were.
The tease at the end. Yeah, no,
they need the tease at the end, man. It's what we want.
No, I know. I was a bit disappointed they didn't do that either, even if it's something like really minor. But yeah, something like that would have been really nice.
Just something to give you a flavour of what's around the corner. Like if they just shown you like a little bit of ankle or something, just a little tease would have been tremendous. But look, I mean, at the end of the day, we can't look a gift horse in the mouth. This is an incredible process that the guys at Games Workshop go through. It is so much better than what they were doing, well, now getting on for like 7 years ago, where they were just an entirely different entity with an entirely different approach. I mean, their community focus and their approach is so much better now. And
even
it's strange to me to think...
Oh, go on. I was going to say, even between the very early previews that they were doing last year and now, it's like, I like that they kind of announced the run order and that they've done 40k first, because a lot of times people are like, is there going to be another 40k thing when they were mixing it up? So I sort of like they've gone, here's 40k stuff. Yeah, there's like, one thing for 40k. Cool. Or two, if you include Kill Team, I guess. It's like, here you go. Here's the next thing. Here's the next thing. Here's the next thing. Here's a cool little surprise at the end. It's not quite a tease. I sort of like we've shown you everything, but here's just a trailer for something. We're not going to talk about it. That was always cool.
I think the thing is, though, it's good that they've announced the running order, because it means that us 40k players that aren't interested in other stuff can go into it, watch it, and then go away. Because I think one of the problems was with the way that the 40k community was so prevalent and so vocal, was we would go into the chat and be like, oh, what do you mean Age of Sigmar? Lame, rubbish, get to your Space Marines. And it was like, so we would just be sat there really impatient, being like, oh God, not sisters, but like, daughters of Cain. Like, and it's just, that was what the chat was like. I mean, I used to love the fact that early doors, everyone was like pushing the modders buttons and trying to put like really ridiculous stuff up there. So they've now attributed it to your subscription. So like you can only comment if you're a subscriber. They've limited you to posting one comment every 2 minutes. And then obviously you're heavily moderated. So if you are really ridiculously, if you keep spamming like text art like people were doing the first time around, they're just like ban, and it's just hilarious. So I think they've done a good job of moderating it, and I think they've done a good job of pacing it. So as us 40k players turn up and we go, way, and then we get what we want, and then we go, because we don't necessarily want to stick around and see everything.
Yeah, I want to.
I do. I mean, I generalise. I stick around, but not everyone's up for that. So it's good.
Exactly.
They
streamlines
are
it for
so
those
much
that
better.
want it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's so much better than it used to be. And well done them. I think they do an excellent job. I'm consistently impressed with the work they do. They are they're on good form.
Yeah, it was nice and quick. There wasn't too much like sort of waiting around between segments and stuff.
And the team have really worked on their scripts and on their patter. Like they have a much better timeline for things. And if they know that it's a weaker topic, they do actually add in extras now. So, they get a bit more of a flavour of what it is they're going to do. Plus, also, they don't try and bring more people in. It's always just Eddie and the Dark Angels guy. I keep forgetting his name. You remember his name?
No, it's on the tip
anyway,
of my
doesn't matter.
tongue.
They get the two guys, and it's just them. And they don't then just go, right, and now we're going to go to Jez, and then Jez is sat in his front room and the internet connection's awful, and he has to spend the opening 5 minutes talking about how terrible his internet is or whatever, and it's like, oh, great. It's all very smooth now, and they've worked out their pattern. Because one of the things that used to happen in the early ones was they would sit there going...
That's the guy's name.
That's his name, yeah. But in the earlier ones, they'd end up in these really awkward situations where they had to talk for 10 minutes about everything, every individual thing, but they'd end up with something like a book release that they had like one thing they could say, which is like the subject matter, because they can't obviously discuss what's in the book. So they'd be like, oh, Black Library, here's a book. And then it'd be like Adam being like, so yeah, I mean, that's a good book, isn't it? Yeah, I can't wait to read that book. Oh God, I've got to keep going now for 8 more minutes. Eddie, I mean, what about the book? Are you excited about, Eddie? I mean, I can't really say because it would be spoilers. Oh yeah, okay, 7 more minutes to go. It's like, let's see what the community is saying about the book. It's a nice cover. Oh yes, good art, great. It's just one of those where it's like, oh man, I feel for you guys. Although seemingly I feel for everyone who just listened to me do an impression of it. But there you go. Yeah, no, good update. Phil, did you want to talk about anything else? I mean, we've been here for a while.
It is late.
Did you have some other
but
topics?
I mean, I kind of wanted to talk about the pre-orders for the coming week. It's all.
You want to talk about the pre-orders for the coming week? You want to talk about Combat Patrol Dark Angels?
Well, not just that, but just Blade Guard multi-part kits. Eradicators multi-part. They're all here. They're all great. Maybe we should talk about it next week.
We'll talk about it next week. I mean, what more can we say other than they're going on pre-order and they look well nice?
Well, I had some interesting points, but I'm going to delay it till next week.
We're going to have to tease people for next week.
And something else, or whatever it was called that they do with the Warhammer preview.
Exactly. This is the at the end tease. This is you showing the bit of ankle, as I said.
Yeah, check out my ankle. It's quite nice.
Check out my ankle. I'm going to talk about them Blade Guard. Not really.
It'd be
we look forward to that next episode, mate. I figure, given that this is the idea of these weekly formats, is they're a bit more streamlined. The fact that this one is now running over 3 hours, I feel like this probably is
Tim's fault. He said it himself.
It is Tim's fault.
He rambled.
He did, yeah. Plus, it's really late now. I got work in the morning.
Well, don't we all?
And I'm bursting for the toilet, if I'm honest.
I mean, your garden is just a mere step away.
It is just a mere step away, but it's not one. It's not suitable for the garden. This one, unless I dig a latrine, I suppose.
On that note, goodbye, everyone.
Yeah, goodbye, everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.